Chapter 99. Yi Xian did not stop. Within the exquisite spirit sword, a torrential battle intent surged out endlessly. In an instant, the entire cave started to violently tremble. Battle intent? Sword intent? Actually, the two did not repel each other. On the contrary, the two were one. He was a martial artist, but he was also a swordsman. How could a swordsman not have any battle intent when facing an enemy? Sword intent was based on the sword, but the essence was man. Similarly, battle intent was based on man as its core. It could be said that both sword intent and battle intent were actually the same. There was no difference. Previously, Yi Xian had subconsciously separated the two. Just now, due to a freak combination of factors, he realized that battle intent could be integrated with a sword. Or rather, it could be integrated with sword intent. And it was a perfect integration. This was because the core of battle intent was the word, battle. What was the purpose of holding the sword? It was also to fight. The core of both was the same. In the sky above Yi Xian, the spirit elegant sword vibrated violently. This sword was filled with endless battle intent as if it could fight against the entire world. At this moment, another powerful intent appeared within the spirit elegant sword. Sword intent. After the sword intent appeared, the spirit elegant sword suddenly started to spin. In an instant, waves of sword hums reverberated throughout the cave. Although the battle intent and sword intent did not integrate, they did not repel each other. Instead, they coiled around the spirit elegant sword. The two intents interacted harmoniously. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly flew into the air. He grabbed the spirit elegant sword. In an instant, the battle intent and sword intent enveloped his entire body. The two intents enveloped him harmoniously. Yi Xian closed his eyes slowly. Fight. Just like what the middle-aged man had said, what was battle intent? It was naturally the word, battle. The word, battle, was like the momentum of a sword that determined life and death. No matter who you are, no matter how strong you are, if you want to kill me, I must fight you. No. I must slash you to death. What he lacked previously was this belief. Sword Dao belief. With one thought, the heart was clear. At the moment Yi Xian opened his eyes, the sword in his hand trembled violently. In the next moment, a sword shot into the sky, pierced through the ceiling of the cave, and then shot into the clouds. Inside the cave, a powerful aura swept out from Yi Xian. At the same time, a sudden change occurred above the cave. The floating clouds above the clouds suddenly converged towards the cave. Moreover, a rainbow that stretched across the sky appeared above the cave. The world was changing. Inside the cave, the middle-aged man glanced at Yi Xian with a complicated expression. Reaching Martial Dao Grandmaster and Sword Dao Grandmaster at the same time, and even causing an anomaly in the world. Just who could have taught such a monstrous person? Martial Dao Grandmaster. Sword Dao Grandmaster. Yi Xian could be said to have reached it at the same time. However, this was not the end. A powerful strand of energy suddenly erupted from within Yi Xian. This energy was exactly the energy he devoured from the clear rank black sword earlier. Earlier, he hadn't dared to improve it, and he'd forcefully suppressed it. But now, he didn't have to suppress it any longer. Or it should be said that he couldn't suppress it any longer. A clear rank sword. How terrifying was that energy? In an instant, Yi Xian's entire body started trembling violently. The middle-aged man frowned slightly. Could it be that he's going to break through again? Do you have to provoke me like this? Even though he was a genius, or it should be said that he was a monstrous genius, a super monstrous genius, when compared to Yi Xian who stood before him, he suddenly realized that he was just a so-so when he was young. Meanwhile, Yi Xian's body trembled even more violently. The middle-aged man frowned slightly. Suddenly, he pressed his right hand down lightly towards Yi Xian from afar. In an instant, the violent energy that emanated from Yi Xian instantly surged back into his body and was suppressed. Yi Xian's body gradually calmed down, and then he started to madly devour the energy. Just like this, after an unknown period of time, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. Bang! A terrifying aura suddenly swept out from his body. He hadn't attained the Nether Passage realm. The middle-aged man glanced at Yi Xian. You could have attained the Nether Passage realm, so why did you forcefully suppress it? Yi Xian shook his head. I was too impatient. The middle-aged man's eyes had a trace of astonishment. He sized up Yi Xian and smiled. "Why do you say that?" Yi Xian said in a low voice, "I've just attained the high rank not long ago, so if I were to forcefully charge into the Nether Passage realm now, it would feel slightly superficial and unreal." The middle-aged man sighed lightly. A young boy that's able to be so calm and collected is truly rare. "You're right. If you were to charge into the Nether Passage realm now, your cultivation would be greatly exaggerated because you haven't completely grasped the high rank. It wouldn't matter if you were an ordinary person, but you're different. Your foundation is truly too good, so it's best to build a solid foundation for every realm. This will be extremely beneficial to you in the future." Yi Xian bowed slightly to the middle-aged man. "Thank you for your guidance, senior." The middle-aged man smiled. "Actually, your current state isn't any different from the Nether Passage realm. It can be said that in terms of cultivation, you're already at the Nether Passage realm. If you attain the Nether Passage realm in the future, very few people in the same realm would be able to compare to you." When he spoke up to here, he paused slightly before he continued. "As for the martial Dao, you already know how to condense battle intent, and you know how to maximize the might of battle intent. I don't have anything else to teach you. After all, you don't have a dantian, so you're unable to learn some other martial techniques from me." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, "Senior, please give me some guidance in any aspect." The middle-aged man glanced at the youth, and he pondered for a moment before he said, "No matter if you're a swordsman or a martial artist, you must remember to never lose your heart. As for what a heart is, I personally understand it to be the truest thoughts in your heart. People tend to have some thoughts and ambitions that they never had before as their strength increases. Some of these thoughts and ambitions are good, but some are bad. For example, if a poor man suddenly becomes rich, it's very likely that he'll abandon his wife and children because he can choose more beautiful women." When he spoke up to here, he glanced at Yi Xian. "It's best to have a ruler in one's heart, so that one can measure others as well as measure oneself." Yi Xian bowed deeply to the middle-aged man. "Junior will remember." The middle-aged man smiled. "One last word. Your talent is not bad, and your comprehension is excellent. On the path of cultivation, you have many advantages, but these advantages can also turn into disadvantages. If a person was used to having everything go his way, then one day he would suddenly go down a wrong path. It was very likely that he would lose his way and go astray. You swordsmen pay attention to understanding your heart, but if you can't, don't be anxious. There are many things that can be rushed, but there are also many things that can't be rushed. Many times, it's best to take things step by step." Yi Xian bowed deeply again. "Junior will remember." The middle-aged man hesitated for a moment. Then, he waved his right hand. Not far from his right, a golden box suddenly flew in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged man with a puzzled expression. The middle-aged man smiled and said, "Open it." Yi Xian opened the box. Inside the box was a dragon-shaped token, and on the back of the token were 2 golden words. "Kingdom Scholar." "Kingdom Scholar?" Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man smiled and said, "This is a symbol of status in the Ning country. Although you aren't from the Ning country, it doesn't matter. In the future, if you walk around the Ning country, you can use this token to travel unimpeded. In addition, this token also has some other uses. Inside this token is a small array called the Dragon Gathering Array. This array can gather dragon chi. In the future, if you fight against an enemy, as long as you have enough top-grade spirit stones, you can activate this array and obtain a trace of dragon chi. This trace of dragon chi can greatly increase your physical strength and physique. It should be of great help to you right now." Hearing this, Yi Xian quickly put away the token. "Thank you, senior." The middle-aged man smiled. "Since you entered my secret realm today, it can be said that we are fated. Since we are fated, I will naturally leave a favor behind. Young man, I hope we can meet again in the future." After saying this, his body gradually turned illusory. Before long, the middle-aged man completely disappeared from the scene. Yi Xian looked at the 2 golden boxes not far from the middle-aged man. Yi Xian didn't take them. Instead, he turned around and left. People shouldn't be greedy. Since the middle-aged man didn't give him the remaining 2 boxes, he naturally wouldn't take them by force. Not long after Yi Xian turned around and left, the middle-aged man suddenly appeared again. He looked at the 2 golden boxes beside him and shook his head with a smile. A good seedling. Unfortunately, he isn't from my Ning country. What a pity. As soon as he finished speaking, the middle-aged man vanished completely. As soon as Yi Xian walked out of the cave, the world before his eyes spun, and it didn't take long for his vision to become blurry. It wasn't long before he vanished on the spot. After an unknown period of time, Yi Xian opened his eyes slowly, and he was already outside the secret realm when he opened his eyes. Moreover, Old Man Ji, Zhang Jiao, and the others weren't too far away from him. Zhang Jiao and the others instantly heaved sighs of relief when they saw Yi Xian. Mo Yunqi walked over to Yi Xian, and then he sized up Yi Xian and said, "I thought you'd gone missing." Yi Xian smiled and said, "I was delayed by something. Sorry for making everyone wait." Meanwhile, Zhang Jiao walked over to Yi Xian, and she sized up Yi Xian before she said, "Since you're fine, then I'll be leaving." As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and left. But in next to no time, she suddenly turned around to look at Yi Xian after taking a few steps, and she said with slight anger, "Don't you know how to send me off?" Yi Xian was speechless. Mo Yunqi and the others roared with laughter at the side. After a short moment, Yi Xian sent Zhang Jiao off slowly towards the distance. Zhang Jiao said in a light voice, "Those people will definitely not let the matter go. If you return to the imperial capital, then it'll absolutely be a dead end for you." Yi Xian said in a low voice, "That's what I have to face." Zhang Jiao glanced at Yi Xian and said, "I might not be able to help you anymore because it's already beyond my ability." Yi Xian turned around to look at Zhang Jiao, and then he grinned. "Little Jiao, you've already helped me a lot. Don't get involved again. It's not good for you, and it's even worse for the Zhang Kingdom's imperial family." Zhang Jiao just looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian was about to speak, but right at this moment, she suddenly walked over to Yi Xian, and then helped Yi Xian tidy up the clothes on his chest. "Remember, live well. You must live well. You must." As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and left. She left very quickly and anxiously, and it didn't take long for her to vanish from Yi Xian's line of sight. Yi Xian went silent for a moment, and then he suddenly turned around to look at Old Man Ji who wasn't far away. "I want to go to Xueqi Academy." Old Man Ji glanced at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Chapter 100. Kill Xueqi Academy. All of them were stunned when they heard Yi Xian. Mo Yunqi who stood nearby Yi Xian said softly, "Bandit Yi, are you going to counterattack?" Yi Xian nodded. "Counterattack?" Mo Yunqi thought for a moment and said, "Bandit Yi, we might not be able to defeat them." Bai Zhe nodded. "We can't." Yi Xian gazed at them. "We really can't. However, will they stop attacking us if we don't attack them?" Both of them fell silent. Xueqi Academy was clearly trying to annihilate Navy Wave Academy. Both academies had really come to a state where only one of them would perish. Even if Navy Wave Academy begged for mercy now, Xueqi Academy wouldn't let them off. When they thought up to here, Mo Yunqi and the others came to an understanding. Mo Yunqi nodded. "Then let's do it." Yi Xian gazed at Old Man Ji, and the old man said softly, "Let's return to the academy first." All of them nodded. Meanwhile, the 9th floor master and Zhang Yuetian suddenly appeared here. The 9th floor master glanced at Yi Xian and smiled. "Young friend, we meet again." Yi Xian bowed deeply to the 9th building master and Zhang Yuetian. "Thank you for your secret help." The smile on the faces of the 9th building master and Zhang Yuetian became even brighter when they saw Yi Xian's reaction. What was the reason for them to stand on the side and lend a helping hand? It was naturally to rope in Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian was so grateful, and that was their objective. No one wanted to help an ingrate. The 9th floor master smiled. "It just so happens that all of you are returning to the imperial capital. You can take my Immortal Indulgence Pavilion's cloud ship, and it's ready." Yi Xian cupped his fists. "Thank you." The 9th floor master smiled. "It's just a small matter. There's no need to be so courteous." In next to no time, all of them boarded the cloud ship and returned to the imperial capital. The 9th floor master, Zhang Yuetian, and Old Man Ji personally escorted them. At a certain place, Tuoba Yen watched Yi Xian and the others leave without saying anything. Behind her, the old man said in a low voice, "Fortunately, My Ning Empire didn't participate in the encirclement this time. Otherwise, I'm afraid we would have lost countless geniuses. The old woman beside the old man nodded. Yi Xian and the others aren't weak, especially that Yi Xian. His strength is probably enough to fight against a god combination realm expert. Speaking up to here, she seemed to have thought of something and suddenly sneered. It is said that this person brought his younger sister to Karaki Academy in the past, hoping to enter Karaki Academy, but Karaki Academy refused to let him in. Those elders of Karaki Academy are really pigs with human heads. Such a monstrous genius was led into Azure Billow Academy just like that. I'm afraid that the hearts of those elders and teachers of Karaki Academy are bleeding. Tuoba Yen said indifferently, extreme prosperity leads to decline. With that said, she turned to look at the distant sky. The great cloud empire is corrupt internally, and the forces on the mountain are frequently emerging. Some of the surrounding countries are even gearing up for a fight. I'm afraid there won't be many peaceful days in Azure Province. Behind Tuoba Yen, the old woman nodded. Fortunately, we didn't participate in the encirclement this time. If we lost those talents in our country, it would undoubtedly be a great blow to us. Speaking up to here, she sighed in a low voice. It would be a pity if Yi Xian was a citizen of my Ning Empire. Tuoba Yen said indifferently. What's his temperament like? Does he have any regard for his country? The old woman sighed again. Your Majesty, you may not know this, but when he saw the Tang army slaughtering the people of the Jiang Kingdom in Two World City, no one in the city dared to make a move. Only he stepped forward bravely. In the end, he even dared to block thousands of Tang army cavalry by himself. The reason why the royal family of the Jiang Kingdom protects him so much is not only because of his talent, but also because of this matter. A genius, a peerless genius, who regards himself as a citizen of Jiang Empire, has regard for his country, and will defend the dignity of the country fearlessly. The imperial family of Jiang Empire naturally wants to rope him in. Tuoba Yen slowly closed his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, the old woman said, however, this person has killed so many monstrous geniuses this time. These people all have forces behind them, especially the Great Cloud Empire's Karaki Academy and the Dark World. These two forces will definitely retaliate. Azure Province's Azure Billow Academy won't be able to protect him. However, this matter has nothing to do with my Ning Empire. Tuoba Yen suddenly opened his eyes. Pass down my order. Let the people below pay attention to the movements of Jiang Empire at all times. The old woman hesitated for a moment and then nodded. Yes. Tuoba Yen turned and left. On the cloud ship. After Yi Xian and the others boarded the cloud ship, they returned to their boxes. Healing. In the secret realm, everyone had suffered varying degrees of injuries. Now, their top priority was to heal their injuries. The cloud ship was secretly guarded by the 9th Building Master, Zhang Yuetian, and Old Man Ji. Obviously, they were afraid that the Karaki Academy would secretly attack them. Right now, Karaki Academy was obviously driven to desperation and was willing to do anything. Somewhere, Zhang Yuetian found Old Man Ji. The old man was still drunk. Zhang Yuetian sized up Old Man Ji and said in a deep voice, "Who's behind that kid?" Old Man Ji took a sip of wine and shook his head. Zhang Yuetian smiled bitterly. "Brother Ji, you can't even tell me?" Old Man Ji shook his head again. "I don't know either." Zhang Yuetian frowned. "How can you not know?" Old Man Ji said indifferently. "I never asked and I won't ask." He naturally knew that there was someone behind Yi Xian. Otherwise, no matter how monstrous Yi Xian was, it was impossible for him to have such achievements in Sword Dao. However, he never asked. Zhang Yuetian was silent for a moment, then said, "What are you going to do next?" "Deal with it." Now, even a fool knew that the Azure Billow Academy would face the crazy revenge of those forces. Old Man Ji drank a mouthful of wine, then lay down in the air and soon snored. Zhang Yuetian's face darkened when he saw this. A moment later, Zhang Yuetian turned and left. Zhang Yuetian went to look for the 9th floor master. Zhang Yuetian was about to speak, but the 9th floor master shook his head. "I don't know anything." Zhang Yuetian's expression froze, then he smiled bitterly. "Not even a little bit?" To be honest, the old man is panicking. The 9th floor master said in a low voice, "Karaki Academy's actions are really despicable. My drunken immortal brothel is the first to despise such a despicable and shameless academy. Therefore, Whether or not he has someone behind him, my drunken immortal brothel will stand on his side. In this world, there must be some justice. The corner of Zhang Yuetian's mouth twitched. Nonsense. Inside the prison pagoda, Yi Xian swallowed a golden sore pill. The effects of the pill were excellent, and the injuries on his body were already recovering at a rapid pace. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes, and a golden earth word appeared between his brows. Dao Law. Through this Dao Law, he could now feel everything about the first floor of the prison pagoda, and even felt a trace of mysterious power. This seemed to be the power of the first floor of the prison pagoda. The mysterious woman had told him that he could use the first floor of the prison pagoda to fight, but it was very dangerous. Unless it was the most dangerous moment, it was best not to use it. But at this moment, when he tried to touch this power, he actually felt his heart palpitate. It was as if his body was about to be sucked dry. Yi Xian hurriedly put away the Dao Law. At this moment, his face was as white as a sheet, and cold sweat kept dripping from his forehead. Collapse. He felt like his entire body was about to collapse. Yi Xian was extremely shocked. What kind of power was that? He now knew why the mysterious woman didn't let him use the prison pagoda. He didn't have the ability to use the pagoda now, and if he tried to use it forcefully, he might really die. Yi Xian took a deep breath, and stopped thinking about that power. The more he thought about it, the more his heart palpitated. After a while, he felt a little better, and took out a small wooden figure that looked exactly like Yi Ling. Yi Ling. He gently stroked the small wooden figure in his hand, and said softly, I wonder if the little girl will get used to it. As he spoke, his eyes gradually became determined. The wintry North sect is waiting for me in the divine Central Plains. I'll come very soon, and when that time comes, I'll make sure that no one dares to bully you when they hear my name. With that, he put away the small wooden figure. Work hard. Work hard. Work hard. For Yi Xian, what he needed to do now was to work hard to become stronger. Only with strength could he protect the people he wanted to protect, and only then could he pursue the person he liked. Without strength, everything else was bullshit. In the other boxes, Mo Yunqi and the others were thinking the same thing as Yi Xian. This time, they felt danger once again. A real danger. In the mystic realm this time, all of them had almost died, and even Yi Xian had almost lost his life a few times. If they didn't work hard, it wouldn't just be a near death next time, but a real death. And this time, they had also seen geniuses and monsters from other countries and places. Gap. They had to admit that there was still a gap between them and those top geniuses and monsters. Whether it was for Zhonglan Academy or for themselves, they had to work hard. Whether it was Yi Xian or Mo Yunqi and the other two, their mental states had actually changed. 2 days later, the cloud ship arrived at the imperial capital. After the cloud ship landed, Yi Xian and the other three got off. They didn't return to Zhonglan Academy, but headed straight for Xueqi Academy. Along the way, countless people followed them. Of course, most of them followed them to watch the show. Soon, the news of Yi Xian and the other three returning to the imperial capital spread like a plague. Thus, countless people headed for Xueqi Academy. Old Ji didn't follow them, but returned to Zhonglan Academy. Old Ji came to a small hall in the back mountain of Zhonglan Academy. He walked into the hall, took out 3 ink-black incense sticks, and lit them. The smoke slowly drifted away, and soon, an illusory middle-aged man appeared in the smoke. The middle-aged man looked coldly at Old Ji. Realm transmission smoke. What's the matter? Old Ji cupped his fists. Azure Province, Zhonglan Academy, Ji Yun, begs the headquarters for help. The middle-aged man suddenly frowned, and he interrupted Old Ji. Azure Province? Zhonglan Academy? Old Ji nodded. Yes. The middle-aged man sized up Old Ji. You're the one who left the headquarters and threatened to make the dean apologize, Ji Yun. Old Ji was silent. The middle-aged man sneered. You were so arrogant back then, but now you want to ask the headquarters for help? Where's your backbone? Where's the domineering attitude you had when you left the headquarters? Old Ji was silent. At this moment the middle-aged man said coldly, You may not know, but you have been removed from the headquarters. You are no longer a student of Zhonglan Academy. As for Azure Province's Zhonglan Academy, this lord represents Zhonglan Academy to warn you. My Zhonglan Academy has never opened a branch in Azure Province, and we will not recognize your Azure Province's Zhonglan Academy. Furthermore, you are not allowed to use the words Zhonglan Academy to open a branch in Azure Province, or else, my Zhonglan Academy will not forgive you. After saying that, he disappeared. Removed. Old G was a little stunned. Removed my name? Begging for subscriptions. Begging for tickets. Chapter 101. After an unknown amount of time, Old Man G walked out of the small hall. He was still drunk as usual. Imperial capital. Somewhere on a street. Yi Xian and the other three quickly walked into the distance. Behind them, a large group of people followed. Moreover, more and more people were rushing over. Beside Yi Xian, Mo Yunqi suddenly said, "Bandit Yi, if we go like this, will we come out lying down?" Yi Xian glanced at Mo Yunqi. "Watch me later." Mo Yunqi. Soon, the group arrived at the foot of Tsang Mountain. Behind Yi Xian's group, there were already thousands of people, and the number was still increasing. Obviously, these people were here to watch a show. Yi Xian glanced at Tsang Mountain. In the next moment, he flicked his finger and a sword directly pierced the ground in front of him. Yi Xian looked coldly at Tsang Mountain. Zhonglan Academy's student Yi Xian seeks a battle. Seek a battle. Yi Xian's voice resounded like thunder in the field. This request for battle caused the blood of many in the surroundings to boil with excitement. Because of some of Xueqi Academy's actions, it could be said that Xueqi Academy's reputation in the imperial capital was extremely bad. And when Yi Xian killed a student from the Tang Empire, this earned him the recognition of many people in the imperial capital, especially the soldiers. Therefore, many people in the imperial capital had begun to stand on Zhonglan Academy's side. There were even many people who wanted to join Zhonglan Academy. Unfortunately, Zhonglan Academy had no intention of recruiting them. In the field, there was no movement on Tsang Mountain. Seeing that there was no movement on Tsang Mountain, the crowd immediately began to discuss. Some were ridiculing, while others were watching coldly. How many years had it been? Xueqi Academy had never been challenged like this. How would Xueqi Academy respond? In the field, countless people looked at Tsang Mountain. If Xueqi Academy did not respond today, there was no doubt that Xueqi Academy would become the laughingstock of the entire imperial capital. As for Xueqi Academy's prestige and reputation, it would definitely plummet once more. This was a public slap in the face. There was no way Xueqi Academy would not respond. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian's group. The person that came was precisely Li Xiu. Li Xiu glared at Yi Xian. "What are you trying to do?" Yi Xian said calmly, "I want to fight." As he spoke, he glanced at Li Xiu. "What? No one from Xueqi Academy dares to come out and fight?" Li Xiu narrowed his eyes. "Yi Xian, your death is imminent, yet you still have the time to come to my Xueqi Academy? You cut the crap." Yi Xian suddenly said angrily, "Your Xueqi Academy only has one answer, are you going to fight or not? If there is no one in the younger generation." With that said, he waved his right hand and the Spirit Elegance sword flew into his hand. He pointed the Spirit Elegance sword at Li Xiu. "You can come. I'll fight you one-on-one. I'll be responsible for my own life and death." Duel with Li Xiu. The surroundings were in an uproar. This Li Xiu was the vice dean of Xueqi Academy. Even though he was the weakest, his strength wasn't something that a little kid like Yi Xian could go against, right? Mo Yunqi and the others by Yi Xian's side were slightly shocked as well. Obviously, they'd never imagined that Yi Xian would publicly challenge Li Xiu. The nearby Li Xiu's expression instantly became slightly unsightly. Accept the challenge? He naturally didn't dare accept the challenge. Because he was clearly aware of what Yi Xian had done in the secret realm. The current Yi Xian absolutely had the ability to surmount a realm and kill him. If he accepted the challenge, then he would die for sure. But if he didn't accept the challenge, then it wouldn't just be him who lost face. The entire Xueqi Academy would lose face as well. A single sentence from Yi Xian had directly forced him into a hopeless situation. Everyone in the surroundings was looking at Li Xiu. To fight or not to fight? Li Xiu clenched his fists tightly, and his expression was gloomy to the extreme. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly sheathed his sword and said indifferently, "From the top to the bottom of Xueqi Academy, no one has the balls." "How dare you?" Li Xiu suddenly shouted angrily. Yi Xian, you! Stop talking nonsense with me. Yi Xian suddenly pointed at Li Xiu angrily. Just a fucking sentence. Do you dare to fight or not? If you don't dare to fight, then hurry up and F***ck off. If you want to fight, then fight. What's with all the bullshit? Li Xiu stared fixedly at Yi Xian and said fiercely, since you want to fight, then the old man will accompany you. Right at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared before Yi Xian's group of 3. The person that had arrived was the dean of Xueqi Academy, Li Xuansong. Li Xuansong glanced at Yi Xian. What? Didn't Songlan Academy teach you how to respect your elders? Yi Xian sheathed his sword and said indifferently, what? The people of Xueqi Academy only know how to shoot their mouths, and none of them even have the ability to fight? Li Xuansong's eyes narrowed slightly. My Xueqi Academy naturally has people. You, Yi Xian suddenly said, if you want to fight or not, then stop talking nonsense. I don't want to fight with you guys anymore. As he spoke, he looked at Mo Yunqi's group of 3. Let's go. We don't want to waste time with this group of sissies. Mo Yunqi nodded seriously. What AF * King Sissy? Let's go. With that, Yi Xian's group of 4 turned around and left. Behind Yi Xian's group of 4, Li Xuansong's face was ice cold. No one knew what he was thinking. His original plan was that if Yi Xian challenged him, he would use all his trump cards in an instant to kill Yi Xian. However, what he didn't expect was that Yi Xian didn't challenge him. Instead, he turned around and left so decisively. This person wasn't a hothead at all. He knew when to fight and when not to fight. Soon, Yi Xian's group disappeared not far away. After Yi Xian disappeared, the surrounding people also left. Soon, the foot of Tsong Mountain was quiet. Li Xuansong turned to look at Li Xiu not far away. If you make a move, you will definitely die. Li Xiu said solemnly. I know. But Xueqi College can't be humiliated like this. Li Xuansong said softly. Xueqi College has no face to speak of now. Li Xiu lowered his head slightly. Speaking of this, he shook his head and sighed. Li Xuansong turned to look at the direction where Yi Xian's group left. There's no need to be too concerned about the past. Next, let's see how Songlan College faces the revenge of those forces. He will definitely die. Speaking of this, he seemed to have thought of something and turned to look at Li Xiu. Tell the Tang Empire that as long as they make Yi Xian disappear from this world, our Xueqi College will help them in the future. Hearing this, Li Xiu was a little hesitant. Isn't it a little like asking a tiger for its skin with this Tang Empire? Li Xuansong spoke indifferently. It won't be a loss to us if the Jiang Kingdom becomes the Tang Empire in the future. But if Yi Xian doesn't die, then he'll definitely destroy our Xueqi College in the future. Li Xiu nodded. I understand. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Li Xuansong glanced coldly towards the distance, and then he turned around and vanished on the spot. In next to no time, the news of Xueqi College not daring to accept the challenge spread throughout the imperial capital. In the past, the people of the imperial capital took pride in joining Xueqi College. But now, the students of Xueqi College didn't even dare say that they were from Xueqi College. Even their friends and family didn't dare say that their friends were from Xueqi College. It was too embarrassing. It was simply too embarrassing. On the contrary, Songlan Academy, which had disappeared for several decades, had once again appeared before everyone's eyes. Practically everyone in the imperial capital knew the names of Yi Xian, Mo Yunqi, Bai Zhe, and Ji Anji. They weren't just famous in the imperial capital, they were famous throughout the entire Jiang Kingdom. Especially Yi Xian. His current reputation was almost comparable to Enlan's from all those years ago. Songlan College. At night, everyone gathered in Songlan Hall and sat around a table. Yi Xian carried over a dozen dishes to the table. It was a sumptuous feast of fish and meat. Ji Anji licked his chopsticks and was about to start eating when Old Man Ji suddenly said, Tell everyone something. Everyone looked at Old Man Ji, and he said softly, Finish eating first. Ji Anji moved. In less than a few breaths of time, only bones were left of the fish in front of her. Mo Yunqi and Bai Zhe were stunned when they saw this, and then they hurriedly started eating. If they were any slower, even the bones would be gone. Yi Xian glanced at them and shook his head with a smile. Don't worry, there's more in the kitchen. Mo Yunqi gave Yi Xian a thumbs up. Bandit Yi, the food you cook is really delicious. It's comparable to my mother's. Yi Xian. A few minutes later, the dishes on the table were swept clean. Mo Yunqi lay on the chair, patted his stomach, and then looked at Old Man Ji. Old Man Ji, speak quickly. I'm going to cultivate once you're done. Yi Xian and the other two looked at Old Man Ji. Old Man Ji took a sip of wine and said, Now, the four of you pack your things and leave the imperial capital immediately. Yi Xian and the other three were stunned when they heard this. Old Man Ji said indifferently, I contacted the headquarters just now, but they ignored me. In other words, we have no outside help. Mo Yunqi hesitated for a moment and said, Old Man Ji, aren't you very good at fighting? Old Man Ji glanced indifferently at Mo Yunqi. I'll fight one, and you can take the rest. How about it? Mo Yunqi. Yi Xian said in a low voice. Old Man Ji, is it very serious? Old Man Ji nodded. Very serious. All four of us should flee. Split up and go wherever we go. Yi Xian frowned. You don't want Songlon College anymore? Old Man Ji glanced at Yi Xian. Our lives are important. The surroundings fell silent. Leave. No one had thought about that because they'd taken this place to be their home. Even Yi Xian was the same. Old Man Ji shook his head when he saw that Yi Xian and the other three didn't move. Don't let your emotions affect your decisions. Staying here will only be a meaningless sacrifice. Leave and cultivate properly. All of your natural talents are top-notch, and you'll have a good future. Mo Yunqi looked at Old Man Ji. What about you, Old Man Ji? Aren't you leaving? Old Man Ji said indifferently. Someone has to stay behind to bring up the rear, right? Why don't you bring up the rear? Mo Yunqi. Yi Xian was just about to speak when a shapeless pressure suddenly enveloped the entire Songlon College. As soon as this pressure appeared, Yi Xian and the other three felt as if a mountain was pressing down on them, and they felt so heavy that they were almost unable to breathe. Chapter 102. As soon as Old Man Ji finished speaking, he suddenly flipped his right hand. Bang! An invisible pressure surged out, and in an instant, the Kanglin Palace shattered with a bang, causing countless fragments to fly all over the sky. The pressure that pressed down on Yi Xian and the others instantly disappeared without a trace, and Yi Xian and the others suddenly relaxed. In the night, moonlight poured down, and the entire land was covered in silver. Not far away from Yi Xian and the others stood an old man in a plain robe. The old man had long hair. His hands were behind his back, and his beard was so long that it almost reached his chest. Beside the old man stood a young man in his 20s, and his face was cold like a block of ice. The old man's gaze fell on Old Man Ji, peak of the myriad Dharma realm. I never thought that there would be a powerhouse like you in the tiny Azure province. Old Man Ji glanced at the old man. Grand Cloud Karaki Academy? The old man nodded. Grand Cloud Karaki Academy. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian not far away. You must be the Yi Xian who killed my Karaki Academy's disciple, Gongshi-san, in the secret domain. Yi Xian nodded and said frankly, That's me. The old man glanced at Yi Xian, and then said, Your foundation is so solid, and you cultivate both the sword and martial arts. No, your physical body can also be considered as a body cultivator. Not to mention Azure Province, even in Great Cloud Realm, it is rare to see someone like you. At this point he paused slightly, and then asked, Before coming here, I did some research. It is said that you went to Karaki Academy that day and wanted to enter Karaki Academy, but you were rejected. Is it true? Yi Xian nodded. The old man shook his head. The teachers of Jiang Country's Karaki Academy are really stupid. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian. Although I was used by them this time, I don't want to say anything now that it has come to this. You killed Gongshi-san. The Dayun Granary Academy will definitely avenge this. Yi Xian glanced at the youth beside the plain-robed old man. I'll fight him one-on-one? The plain-robed old man nodded. However, no matter if you win or lose, you must die today. As he spoke, he glanced at Old Man Ji and the rest. I should say that all of you must die. Hearing this, everyone came to a slight understanding. The Grand Cloud Grain Academy had obviously sent this youth here because they wanted this youth to kill Yi Xian. If this youth killed Yi Xian, then that would naturally be for the best. The Grand Cloud Grain Academy would be able to help this youth become famous this time. Moreover, the world wouldn't say that the Grand Cloud Grain Academy was bullying the weak. If the young man was defeated, then it was fine. The plain-robed old man would kill Yi Xian with a wave of his hand. In this way, Dayun Granary Academy would be able to use this to deter these powers in the Azure Prefecture. Yi Xian naturally understood the old man's intentions. He looked at Old Man Ji, and Old Man Ji said indifferently, "Fight! Fight!" Yi Xian did not waste any time and directly rushed towards the youth in the distance. Since he said fight, then fight. At the instant that Yi Xian moved, the youth by the old man's side had instantly vanished on the spot. In the next moment, bang! An explosion suddenly resounded. In next to no time, two figures retreated explosively, and both Yi Xian and the youth had returned to where they stood just moments ago. They just stopped when the limestone beneath their feet instantly cracked apart. The youth by the old man's side glanced coldly at Yi Xian, and then he suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground. Bang! The ground beneath Yi Xian's feet suddenly cracked apart, and then a formidable force instantly blasted Yi Xian over 30 m back. Yi Xian had just stopped moving when the youth suddenly leaped up like a ferocious tiger pouncing on its prey. The youth instantly charged over 30 m away and arrived in front of Yi Xian. In the next moment, the youth's leg suddenly smashed down towards Yi Xian. His leg actually emanated a strand of faint golden light, and a sharp sound of something tearing apart resounded. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly as he clenched his right hand into a fist, and then he smashed his fist upwards. "I'll smash your head apart with a single punch." This punch didn't just carry momentum, it carried battle intent as well. Monstrous battle intent. A single punch. Bang! The youth was blasted flying, and he smashed down in front of the old man, causing a small hole to be smashed open on the ground. The youth crawled up from the ground, wiped off the blood on the corner of his mouth, and then stared fixedly at Yi Xian. A martial Dao Grandmaster. A martial Dao Grandmaster. Everyone here was slightly shocked, including Mo Yunqi's group of 3. They knew that Yi Xian had comprehended battle intent, but comprehending battle intent didn't represent that he was a martial Dao Grandmaster. In the past, Yi Xian wasn't a martial Dao Grandmaster. Yet now, this punch of his had absolutely attained the standard of a martial Dao Grandmaster. The might of this punch was comparable to an Earth-rank martial technique. Moreover, it was such a casual punch. Yi Xian's face was emotionless as he slowly clenched his right hand. At this moment, he only wanted to fight and didn't want to waste his breath. The youth suddenly vanished on the spot in the distance. Hiss! A shadow flashed over in Yi Xian's field of vision. What swift speed! Yi Xian's face remained emotionless as he raised his hand and smashed his fist forward. Bang! The shadow was instantly blasted into pieces. At the same time, a figure smashed down by the old man's side. It was the youth. The youth immediately stood up, wiped off the blood on the corner of his mouth, and was just about to attack again when the old man spoke abruptly. "There's no need." Besides rage, there was also unwillingness in the youth's eyes as he gazed at the old man. The old man glanced at Yi Xian and spoke indifferently. "You're not a match for him." The youth's expression was slightly ferocious, and it was obvious that he was unconvinced. He'd never suffered such a huge loss while in the same realm of cultivation. The old man glanced coldly at the youth and said, "It's not impossible to be arrogant at a young age, but if you're arrogant to the point of not knowing your own limitations, then you're an idiot. I brought you out this time because I want you to know that there's no lack of monstrous geniuses in the world." The youth was obviously slightly afraid when he saw the old man get angry, and he immediately bowed deeply before retreating behind the old man. However, his gaze had always been on Yi Xian. The old man looked at the nearby Yi Xian and said, "Old man, now you know why Jiang Kingdom's Karaki Academy stops at nothing to kill you. If a person like you becomes an enemy, then you absolutely can't be allowed to live." As soon as he finished speaking, his right hand pressed down towards Yi Xian from afar. He attacked personally. This press caused a shapeless pressure to instantly appear above Yi Xian, and it intended to crush Yi Xian into pieces. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly, and there was no fear in his eyes. He was indeed unable to defeat the person before him, but it didn't mean that he was afraid of the person before him. Fight! A powerful battle intent swept out from Yi Xian's body. However, this strand of battle intent directly shattered when facing the pressure from the plain-robed old man. The gap between the two of them was too big. This gap couldn't be made up for by any external object. At this moment, Old Man Ji suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. In the next moment, he waved his right hand lightly, and a powerful force swept out from his sleeve like a monstrous wave. Boom! The moment the two forces came into contact, they suddenly exploded. A powerful invisible wave of air spread out in all directions, instantly shattering the surrounding ground into pieces. Old Man Ji's right hand pressed down lightly, and the wave of air directly shattered and disappeared. In the distance, the old man glanced at Old Man Ji and said, "It seems that in order to destroy Songlan Academy, I have to get rid of you first." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared on the spot. Right now, Old Man Ji was the strongest in Songlan Academy. If Old Man Ji was killed, there was no doubt that Songlan Academy would be destroyed in the blink of an eye. Old Man Ji's left hand lightly pushed backwards, and in an instant, Yi Xian and the others were directly pushed hundreds of feet away by a wave of force. At the same time, a voice suddenly sounded in Yi Xian and the others' minds. "Find a chance to escape. Escape." Yi Xian glanced at Old Man Ji, who was already engaged in a battle with the old man in the plain robe. Escape at this time? In a rational situation, they should escape. However, he was very clear that they couldn't escape at all. Because he had already sensed some obscure auras in the surroundings, and it was already an inescapable trap. There was nowhere to escape. These people were here to destroy Songlan Academy, and they were also here to kill him. They had nowhere to escape. Escape. Hide and cultivate, and take revenge in the future? Those people would never agree to that. The objective of those people was to eliminate the root of the problem to prevent revenge in the future. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared not far away from Yi Xian and the others. It was Li Xuansong, and beside him was a black-robed man. Li Xuansong glanced at Old Man Ji, who was engaged in a battle not far away, then looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "You seem to have no backing. Now you can die." As soon as he finished speaking, he directly disappeared on the spot. When he found out that those experts had come to Songlan Academy, he immediately rushed over. Now was the best time to eliminate a great threat, so he naturally wouldn't miss this rare opportunity. In the distance, Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and was about to make a move, but at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Bang! With a loud explosion, Li Xuansong returned to his original position. In front of Yi Xian was the 9th floor master of the Drunken Immortal Inn, and not far away was Jiang Yuetian. Both of them were staring coldly at Li Xuansong and Old Man Ji. Li Xuansong's face instantly turned gloomy when he saw them. "9th floor master, Jiang Yuetian, do the two of you really intend to go against my Songlan Academy?" The 9th floor master glanced coldly at Li Xuansong, and then he turned to look at Yi Xian. "My young friend, the two of us can only help you stop these two. There are at least 6 Dharma Realm experts here tonight, and they're watching from the shadows and might attack at any moment. Besides that, I believe that the Dark Dimension has definitely sent someone here. I don't know exactly where this person is." Yi Xian suddenly said, "I've already notified my master." Master. The 9th floor master was stunned when he heard this. In the next moment, he suddenly turned to look at Li Xuansong and roared with laughter. "Li Xuansong, your Songlan Academy has committed many acts of injustice. My Immortal Inn has been unable to tolerate your actions for a long time. Today, my Immortal Inn will help the Jiang Kingdom eliminate a great scourge like you." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged directly at Li Xuansong. Chapter 103. Enforce Justice on Behalf of the Heavens? Li Xuansong spoke ferociously. "What's wrong with you?" As soon as he finished speaking, the 9th floor master had already charged over to him. Bang! An explosion resounded like a thunderclap, and then the two of them parted as soon as they collided. Li Xuansong stared fixedly at the 9th floor master. "Your Immortal Indulgence Pavilion isn't a good person, yet you want to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens? Is there something wrong with your fucking head?" The 9th floor master glanced coldly at Li Xuansong. "What's with all the nonsense? Just come and fight." As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished once more. When he saw that the 9th floor master was determined to fight, Li Xuansong had completely given up on the idea of negotiating. He didn't waste his breath and directly entered into battle with the 9th floor master. Bang! Bang! Not long after, a series of earth-shattering noises rang out from their surroundings. On the other side, Jiang Yuetian stared fixedly at the black-robed man in front of him. After all, He and the ninth floor master would definitely come tonight. He'd done so much earlier, and if he didn't come tonight, then everything would have been in vain. Especially Zhang Yuetian. He'd invested in Yi Xian, and if Yi Xian died, then everything would be meaningless. Not only would it be meaningless, but Xueqi Academy would even take revenge on him. The black-robed man suddenly said, "He actually made you bet the entire Zhang Kingdom's imperial family?" Zhang Yuetian spoke indifferently. Xueqi Academy has committed numerous crimes, and they should be eliminated. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot. Not far away, the black-robed man also disappeared from where he stood. Yi Xian turned to look at Mo Yunqi and the others. "All of you leave." "Leave." Mo Yunqi and the others were stunned. Yi Xian glanced at them and said, "The three of you leave right now." Mo Yunqi spoke in a low voice. "Bandit Yi, what's the meaning of this?" Yi Xian turned to look towards the distance and spoke softly. "There's really no need for all of you to die here." Now, he understood the situation clearly. Songlan Academy's headquarters didn't care about this, and Old Man Ji couldn't endure so much pressure by himself. He was in a hopeless situation. Was he lost? Naturally, he was a little confused. Reality was cruel and helpless. He, Yi Xian, was ultimately not a sword immortal who could cut off all troubles with a single strike of his sword. The helplessness of the weak. Yi Xian had already experienced this before, and now, he understood it even more deeply. When you were weak, you could only resign yourself to fate. Beside Yi Xian, Mo Yunqi suddenly said, "Bandit Yi, your words are not good enough." Yi Xian looked at Mo Yunqi, and Mo Yunqi said in a low voice, "If we escape at this time and leave you and Old Man Ji here, are we still King human?" "Yes, although it's useless for us to stay here, we can still die together." "Let's die together." If they stayed, they would really die together. Yi Xian still wanted to say something, but Mo Yunqi shook his head. "Songlan Academy is your home, and also our home. Run away, drag out an ignoble existence. Although King want to do that, I really can't bring myself to do it. Let's face it together. Don't try to persuade me if you continue. I'm afraid I'll be tempted." Not far away, Bai Zhe glanced at Mo Yunqi. "You're still considered a man." Mo Yunqi glared at Bai Zhe. "What do you mean considered? I'm a man to begin with." Bai Zhe said seriously. "I couldn't tell before." Mo Yunqi, at the side, Yi Xian glanced at the few people fighting in the distance, and after a moment, he slowly closed his eyes. "Second floor guru. Can I have a chat?" No response. Yi Xian said again, "Do you want to come out?" At this time, a white piece of paper floated out from the second floor. On the paper, there were a few claw marks, and these claw marks formed a circle. Yi Xian was dumbfounded. What did this mean? Suddenly, another piece of paper floated out from the second floor. On the paper were two circles formed by claw marks. No, Yi Xian carefully discovered that there was a slight difference between these two circles. He put the two pieces of paper together, and then discovered that the circle on the second piece of paper seemed to roll forward a little. Roll. Yi Xian was stunned. Was this King asking him to roll? Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. "Guru, can't we talk?" From the second floor, a piece of paper floated down. On the paper, there was nothing. Yi Xian was stunned, and soon, his face darkened. There was nothing. This King meant that there was nothing to talk about. Yi Xian still wanted to say something. At this time, another two pieces of paper floated out. On the paper, there were still two circles formed by claw marks. Obviously, this was asking him to roll. Yi Xian's face twitched, not giving him any face at all. He glanced at the second floor, and he finally understood. This guy on the second floor was probably waiting for him to die. Once he died, maybe this guy on the second floor could come out. Or he could take the opportunity to snatch the tower. Yi Xian shook his head. He was also a fool, hoping that this guy on the second floor would help him fight. It was already good enough that this guy didn't hit him. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian looked up and then said, "Senior, are you there? Call for help?" Damn, at this time, he naturally had to think of a way to call for help. At this time, if he still didn't call for help, then it wasn't stubbornness, it was stupidity. Unfortunately, the mysterious woman didn't respond. Yi Xian called out a few more times, but still no response. Yi Xian sighed softly, and then left the prison pagoda. Yi Xian looked up, not far away. There was still a fierce battle, especially between Old Man Ji and the plain-robed old man. The two of them were equally matched, and these two were also fighting the most fiercely. On the other side, the ninth-floor master of the Drunken Immortal restaurant and Jiang Yuetian's group of four were not really fighting. The four of them were restraining each other. Yi Xian retracted his gaze, and he looked around. In the darkness, there were still many people watching. None of them were weak. These people weren't stupid. They all wanted the people of Great Cloud Empire to be the vanguard, and when necessary, these people would definitely make a move. For example, when Old Man Ji was defeated. At that time, these people wouldn't have any scruples. Old Man Ji. Yi Xian looked at the distant sky, where Old Man Ji was still fighting, and said softly, Old Mo, Old Bai, Olden. Today, perhaps everyone will really die here. Mo Yunqi sighed softly. He took out a piece of paper and a brush, and then began to write. Bai Zai glanced at Mo Yunqi. What are you doing? Mo Yunqi glanced at Bai Zai. Writing a will. What else can I do? Will. Bai Zai said softly. Who will send it to you? Mo Yunqi stopped, and after a moment, he shook his head. Who cares, write it first. Then he glanced at Bai Zai. What about you? Bai Zai shook his head. Who am I writing to? Mo Yunqi was startled. You don't have a family? Bai Zai shook his head again. I was raised by wild beasts in the mountains. Raised by wild beasts. Yi Xian and Ji Anji looked at Bai Zai, a little surprised. Mo Yunqi sighed softly. Big guy, I didn't know you were so pitiful, Bai Zai said calmly. My adoptive father is the demon general. The entire Mount Mang belongs to my family. Mo Yunqi's expression froze. F***CK. Boom! At this moment, there was a sudden explosion in the distant sky, and soon the entire ground shook violently, and then layer by layer it collapsed. The expressions of Yi Xian and the rest changed drastically, and they all retreated. Boom! Another explosion came from the horizon, and then, two figures separated in the sky. It was Old Man Ji and the plain-robed elder. The plain-robed elder glanced at Old Man Ji. His expression was rather solemn. No wonder Conglan Academy has not fallen for so many years. With a powerhouse like you around, I'm afraid anyone who wants to touch you will have to think twice before doing so. Old Man Ji took the wine gourd from his waist and took a big gulp, and the wine flowed down the corner of his mouth. After a moment he kept the wine gourd, and then looked down at Yi Xian and the rest below. Do you regret entering Conglan Academy? Yi Xian shook his head. No. He did not regret joining Conglan Academy. If not for Old Man Ji, he did not know what would have happened to his sister. Moreover, after coming to Conglan Academy, he also met Mo Yunqi and the rest, and he felt very comfortable here. This was like a home. And he did not even have this feeling in the Yi family of Qingqing. In Qingqing, there was only coldness and benefits. But here, he experienced what it meant to be a friend. Beside Yi Xian, Mo Yunqi thought for a moment, then said, Old Man Ji, I'll tell you the truth, in the beginning, I actually quite regretted it. But later, I realized that you are a good person, and here, I met Bandit Yi, Big Guy, and Senior Sister Ji. Although Bandit Yi and Bai Zai are often jealous of my handsomeness, but... All right. In the sky, Old Man Ji suddenly waved his hand. Stop talking. Let Bai Zai talk. Mo Yunqi was speechless. Bai Zai glanced at Old Man Ji and shook his head. I never regretted it. In the sky, Old Man Ji gulped down a mouthful of wine, and a few breaths of time later, he suddenly squeezed forcefully, causing the wine gourd to shatter. After that, Old Man Ji's roaring laughter resounded in the sky. I never regretted it. That's enough. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned to look at the old man in plain robes in the distance. Then let's fight. As soon as he finished speaking, a powerful aura suddenly shook the sky. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly, and in the next moment, he raised his hands into the air. In an instant, the entire sky started to distort slightly. Distort all things. This was the special ability of the Dhamma realm. In the sky, strands of formidable energy shook the surroundings incessantly, and this formidable energy caused the entire Mount Conglan to tremble violently. Countless people in the surroundings were horrified, and they retreated repeatedly. When he witnessed this scene, the old man's expression changed drastically. You're going to detonate yourself. At this moment, two figures suddenly appeared on Old Man Ji's left and right sides. Chi. 2 streams of blood spurted out from Old Man G's throat and abdomen. In the blink of an eye, the formidable energy in the sky disappeared, and then, Old Man G slowly fell from the sky. It's a peak Dharma realm assassin from the dark world. Be careful. On the other side, the 9th floor head's terrified voice came from the other side. Below, Yi Xian and the rest were stunned when they saw Old Man G falling from the sky, especially Ji Anji, who looked as if he had lost his soul. Soon, Yi Xian leaped up and caught Old Man G. Yi Xian landed steadily on the ground with Old Man G in tow, and blood flowed continuously from Old Man G's throat. Yi Xian was stunned, and he quickly reached for the golden sore pill. At this moment, Old Man G covered his throat and shook his head slightly. I can't. Yi Xian looked at Old Man G, and Old Man G looked at Yi Xian and the rest, and said softly, I can't protect you anymore. P.S. Asking for tickets, asking for subscriptions. Chapter 104. I can't protect you anymore. In an instant, tears welled up in the eyes of Yi Xian and the others. Yi Xian gripped Old Man G's hand tightly. Only now did he realize that he had long since regarded Old Man G as family. Family. Mo Yunqi was the same. At that moment, he no longer had the slightest bit of carelessness. His face was already covered in tears. Bai Zhe clenched his fists tightly. He did not cry, but his eyes had long since become misty. Ji Anji lowered his head in silence. Old Man G's aura grew weaker and weaker. He swept his gaze over the 4 of them one by one. In the end, his gaze fell on Yi Xian. After I leave, you will be the dean of Zhonglan Academy. Promise me that you will take good care of them. Don't let them be bullied. Yi Xian nodded and choked with sobs. All right. Old Man G smiled faintly. This smile caused a lot of blood to seep out between his fingers that were covering his throat. He turned his head to look at the distant horizon. 2 things. First, if possible, please bring back the corpses of the students from the Shao Dao in Song Mountain. You are now the dean, so you have this responsibility. Second, I come from the Central Divine Continent's Zhonglan Academy's headquarters. I am worthy of being a student of Zhonglan Academy, but I have failed my master. If possible in the future, please go to the Zhonglan Academy's headquarters on my behalf and kowtow to him 3 times on my behalf. Tell him that I will repay his kindness in my next life. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly soared into the sky. In the next moment, a powerful force directly enveloped Yi Xian and the others. In the blink of an eye, this force directly transported Yi Xian and the others to the foot of Zhonglan Mountain. Meanwhile, Old Man Ji himself soared into the sky. In the next moment, a powerful aura swept out from his body. This force was so strong that it caused the expressions of everyone in the surroundings to change. Nearby, the plain-robed elder stared at Old Man Ji in shock. You! At this moment, Old Man Ji suddenly charged at the plain-robed elder. Right at this moment, 2 figures silently appeared on both sides of Old Man Ji. When he saw the 2 figures, Old Man Ji slowly closed his eyes. Take them away! In the next moment, boom! A powerful force suddenly exploded from Old Man Ji's body. This force was so strong that even Old Man Ji himself was instantly turned into a bloody mist. Self-detonation at the peak of 10,000 Arts realm. How terrifying was that power? In the air, the 2 figures that had just appeared on Old Man Ji's left and right were instantly sent flying several hundred meters away. The plain-robed old man immediately retreated with the youth next to him. Not only him, but all the experts in the surroundings also retreated rapidly at that moment. In an instant, half of the peak of Mount Azure Billow was directly shaken by that force. The moment Old Man Ji chose to self-detonate, the 9th floor master and Jiang Yuetian suddenly appeared at the foot of the mountain before Yi Xian's group. The 9th floor master glanced at Yi Xian's group of 4, and then he said in a low voice, Come, let's go to the Drunken Immortal Inn first. To the Drunken Immortal Restaurant. Jiang Yuetian looked at the 9th floor master in disbelief. Bringing Yi Xian to the Drunken Immortal Inn was like bringing fire to the Drunken Immortal Inn. Was the Drunken Immortal Inn really going to bet everything on Yi Xian? Yi Xian's group of 4 was also in disbelief. The 9th floor master actually wanted them to go to the Drunken Immortal Inn. Now, the 4 of them could be said to be being pursued by more than 10 Dharma realm experts. If they went to the Drunken Immortal Inn, it was equivalent to bringing fire to the Drunken Immortal Inn. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and wanted to say something. At this moment, the ninth floor master suddenly said, "Don't waste time." As he spoke, he glanced at Zhang Yuetian. "Brother Zhang, take them and leave with me." After saying that, he waved his right hand and directly disappeared on the spot with Yi Xian and Ji Anji. Zhang Yuetian was stunned for a moment, then he took a deep breath. "Then let's bet." After saying that, he directly disappeared on the spot with Mo Yunqi and Bai Zhe. As soon as the few of them disappeared, Li Xuanzong and a black-robed man appeared where they originally stood. Li Xuanzong stared at the few shadows in the distant sky. Is the drunken immortal in fucking crazy? He really couldn't understand it. The drunken immortal in actually dared to offend so many forces in order to protect Yi Xian and the others. Moreover, it was blatantly offending them. There were more than a dozen Dharma realm experts in the surroundings, and there were even 3 or 4 peak Dharma realm experts among them. Most importantly, there was also the Great Fortune Granary Academy and the assassin organization from the Dark World. These 2 forces weren't third-rate forces. The drunken immortal in actually dared to offend both of them at the same time? The black-robed man beside Li Xuanzong said in a deep voice. He definitely has something to rely on. Rely on? Li Xuanzong said ferociously. No matter what he's relying on, Yi Xian and the others must die today. After saying that, he glanced around. This person has reached the Martial Dao Grandmaster realm at such a young age, and he's even a Sword Dao Grandmaster. If he doesn't die, once he becomes a Sword Master or even a Sword Emperor realm swordsman in the future, I'm afraid it won't be a good thing for all of you. After a moment of silence, the plain-robed old man quickly led the young man beside him into the sky. Yi Xian must die. They were all old monsters who had lived for so many years, so they naturally understood the principle of cutting weeds and eliminating the roots. If the weeds were not eliminated, it might bring about a disaster in the future. Seeing those people move, Li Xuanzong grinned and said, "All right, today even your drunken immortal restaurant will be eradicated." After saying that, he and the black-robed man disappeared on the spot. The imperial capital tonight was destined to not be peaceful. Drunken Immortal Restaurant. The ninth building master and Zhang Yuetian soon brought Yi Xian and the others to the Drunken Immortal Restaurant. The Drunken Immortal Restaurant was located in the center of the imperial capital and had a total of 9 floors. Of course, this was only a branch of the Drunken Immortal Restaurant in the country of Jiang. The ninth building master brought Yi Xian and the others to the 9th floor. He walked to the window and looked around. "Those who have nothing to do with this, leave quickly." His voice was like thunder as it spread out. Soon, the people around the Drunken Immortal Restaurant fled. It should be said that there were not many people around. Almost everything within dozens of miles of the Drunken Immortal Restaurant belonged to the Drunken Immortal Restaurant. After clearing the people, the 9th building master suddenly shouted angrily, "Get out of the array!" His voice fell. Boom! A blue light pillar suddenly shot into the sky from the 1st floor of the Drunken Immortal Restaurant. This light pillar instantly enveloped the entire Drunken Immortal Restaurant. At this moment, the entire Drunken Immortal Restaurant was tightly enveloped by this blue light. Apart from that, countless tadpole-like golden runes appeared on the blue light walls. These runes were like tiny snakes that constantly swam around the Drunken Immortal Restaurant. An array formation. In the 9th floor, Zhang Yuetian glanced at the 9th building master and said in a low voice, "This should be the Drunken Immortal Restaurant's famous 9 spirits array." The 9th building master nodded. Zhang Yuetian said in a low voice, "Opening at once costs at least 300,000 supreme-grade spirit stones, and activating at once costs at least 500,000. As he said that, he took a deep look at the 9th building master. This Drunken Immortal Restaurant really spent a lot to protect Yi Xian and the others. The 9th building master shook his head. Money is just worldly possessions. It's not worth mentioning. Beside Yi Xian, Mo Yunqi said softly, "This is the first time I feel that the Drunken Immortal Restaurant is very loyal." Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, the 9th building master looked at Yi Xian. He hesitated for a moment and said, "Little friend, when will your master arrive?" "Your master?" Everyone looked at Yi Xian. In fact, they had already guessed that Yi Xian definitely had a master behind him. After all, it was impossible for Yi Xian to learn sword principle by himself. If that was the case, then he was not a monster, but abnormal. Now that the 9th building master asked, everyone looked at Yi Xian. Curious. Especially Zhang Yuetian. He was extremely curious about who Yi Xian's master was. Who could make the drunken immortal restaurant protect Yi Xian at all costs? At this moment, the ninth building master was actually quite perturbed. No, he was very perturbed. He had taken the initiative to bring Yi Xian and the others to the drunken immortal restaurant because he wanted to provide timely help and protect Yi Xian. So long as he protected Yi Xian, not only would he be able to help the drunken immortal restaurant make friends with a sword immortal, he would also be able to make friends with Yi Xian. Then, Yi Xian's future would be limitless. It could be said to be killing two birds with one stone. But the precondition was that Yi Xian's master had to arrive. If he couldn't, then everyone would be dead. Moreover, he would offend countless formidable powers for the drunken immortal restaurant, especially Dayun Granary Academy and the Dark World. At that time, he would be a sinner of the drunken immortal restaurant. Even dying 100 times wouldn't be enough. Yi Xian was just about to speak when a powerful force suddenly blasted the drunken immortal restaurant. Bang! The entire drunken immortal restaurant shook violently. Everyone turned around and saw a group of people had suddenly appeared outside the drunken immortal restaurant. The person in the lead was the old man in a plain robe from Dayun Granary Academy, and Li Xuanzong and the black-robed old man weren't too far away from the old man. Moreover, there were over 10 people standing not too far away from the three of them. All of them were actually at the Dharma realm. Over 10 Dharma realm experts. This was probably the first time such a lineup had appeared in the history of the kingdom of Jiang. The expressions of everyone on the 9th floor turned solemn when they saw this lineup. Even the 9th building master's expression was slightly unsightly at this moment. This lineup. How could they resist it? Li Xuanzong gazed coldly at the 9th building master. Since your drunken immortal restaurant wants to become enemies with us, then die with us. As soon as he finished speaking, he soared into the sky and slapped his palm towards the drunken immortal restaurant from afar. Bang! The drunken immortal restaurant shook violently while traces of cracks instantly appeared on the walls of light. The 9th building master spoke fiercely. Activate the formation! Bang! Countless dazzling beams of light suddenly shot out from the walls of light that enveloped the drunken immortal restaurant, and every single beam of light carried a strand of formidable force. In midair, Li Xuanzong's eyes narrowed slightly as he turned to look at the old man and the others. What are you waiting for? Let's attack together to prevent any unexpected events from occurring. The old man and the others exchanged glances, and then they vanished on the spot in the next moment. How terrifying was it when over 10 Dharma realm experts attacked at the same time? Bang! Those formidable beams of light practically vanished without a trace in an instant. At the same time, over 10 formidable forces suddenly blasted onto the drunken immortal restaurant. Bang! An enormous explosion suddenly resounded throughout the imperial capital. In an instant, the entire drunken immortal restaurant rumbled and collapsed, causing dust and rubble to shoot into the sky. But in next to no time, the rubble and dust were directly dispersed by Li Xuanzong and the others. Yi Xian and the others had just crawled up from within the ruins when two figures smashed down before them. It was the 9th building master and Jiang Yuetian. Crushed without any suspense. In next to no time, over 10 formidable forces suddenly enveloped Yi Xian and the others. Bang! In an instant, Yi Xian and the others were instantly suppressed to the ground. Not only that, but at this moment, all the bones in their bodies were cracking. Yi Xian wanted to stand up, but at this moment, Li Xuanzong suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian, and a formidable force instantly enveloped Yi Xian. Puh! A mouthful of blood sprayed from Yi Xian's mouth. Li Xuanzong looked coldly at Yi Xian. I want you to understand that not joining my Karaki Academy was the greatest mistake of your life, and it wasn't my Karaki Academy's mistake. As he spoke, he glanced at Mo Yunqi and Bai Zhe who stood by Yi Xian's side, and in the next moment, his figure shook. Bang! Bai Zhe and Mo Yunqi were directly blasted hundreds of meters away, and as soon as they landed on the ground, they spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. Li Xuanzong gazed at Yi Xian and laughed fiercely. You killed so many students of my Karaki Academy. Today, I'll make you watch as your friends die before you. As soon as he finished speaking, he kicked with his right foot. Bang! In the next moment, Bai Zhe, Mo Yunqi, and Ji Anji's stomachs were pierced by the 3 rocks. Yi Xian's eyes almost split apart from rage when he witnessed this scene, and he suddenly roared furiously. Bang! A strand of powerful battle intent suddenly surged out from within him. It wasn't just battle intent, there was sword intent as well. The appearance of these two intents had actually forcefully resisted Li Xuanzong's pressure. In the next moment, his figure shook, and he charged at Li Xuanzong with his sword in hand. Everyone in the surroundings had shock in their eyes when they witnessed this scene. Li Xuanzong was at the peak of the Dharma realm. However, Yi Xian was actually able to forcefully resist his pressure. The most terrifying part was that Yi Xian wasn't just a grandmaster in the martial Dao, he was a grandmaster in the sword Dao as well. A dual cultivator in the martial Dao and the sword. A monster. That was what everyone thought at this moment. There was a trace of shock in Li Xuanzong's eyes as well. There was a few realms of cultivation between him and Yi Xian, yet Yi Xian's intents were able to forcefully resist his pressure. That was truly quite terrifying. The killing intent in Li Xuanzong's eyes grew denser when he thought up to here. He felt even more fortunate that he'd chosen to stop at nothing to eliminate Yi Xian. Otherwise, based on the speed at which Yi Xian grew, he would definitely become a great enemy of Karaki Academy in the future. Meanwhile, Yi Xian had charged over to Li Xuanzong, and Li Xuanzong waved his right hand. Bang! Yi Xian was blasted over 300 m away, and he just descended to the ground when the ground in an area of over 100 m beneath him instantly cracked apart. Yi Xian lay on the ground while blood flowed incessantly from the corners of his mouth. Li Xuanzong walked slowly towards Yi Xian and the others. I told you that you're dead. This time, even the gods won't be able to save you. Beside Yi Xian, Mo Yunqi wiped the blood from the corners of his mouth as he glanced at the nearby Yi Xian. Bandit Yi. I really don't think I can make it this time. I'll make a move first. In front of Yi Xian, Li Xuanzong grinned sinisterly and said, Why? Don't you have a backer? Call him out. Go on and call him out. With that said, he kicked Yi Xian's abdomen. Bang! Yi Xian was sent flying to the ground hundreds of feet away. This time, his body was torn apart. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly sat up and punched his chest, forcefully suppressing the intense discomfort in his heart. The next moment, a golden earth character appeared between his brows. At the same time, the prison pagoda in Yi Xian's body trembled slightly. Immediately after, an illusory Xiao Ta appeared between his brows. But at this moment, his consciousness had actually started to blur. At this moment, the earth character between Yi Xian's brows and the illusory Xiao Ta had vanished. Within his body, the prison pagoda had completely calmed down. Sigh. A sigh resounded without any warning. Li Xuanzong was stunned. In the next moment, he turned his head to look at the sky. Everyone else turned their heads to look as well. A bright moon hung in the distant sky, and beneath it stood a woman in a plain dress. Her back was facing everyone, and her long hair reached her waist. Her hands were placed behind her back, and there were two objects, one black and one white, between her fingertips. At this moment, the woman suddenly opened her right hand. Sir! In an instant, all the trees in the imperial capital shook violently, and then the leaves of those trees suddenly shot into the sky. In an instant, the entire sky above the imperial capital was covered in leaves. In the next moment, the leaves converged like rivers flowing into the ocean to form a green sword, and then it fell firmly into the woman's palm. Everyone present was dumbfounded. Meanwhile, the sword in the woman's hand suddenly vanished, and it was pressed against the center of Li Xuanzong's forehead when it appeared once more. After that, the woman's voice resounded. I'm his backer. You're not convinced? Chapter 105. Everyone in the surroundings was completely stunned. Who was Li Xuanzong? The peak of 10,000 arts realm. Not to mention Jiang country, even in the entire Qingzhou, it was one of the best. But at that moment, Li Xuanzong was subdued with a single strike. Moreover, the sword was so swift that no one in the surroundings could see it clearly. What kind of expert was this? Everyone's eyes were filled with shock as they looked at the plainly dressed woman. On the other hand, the ninth floor master's face was filled with excitement, or rather, madness. Even though he was seriously injured, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. He had won the bet. There really was someone behind Yi Xian, and it was King Sword Immortal. The ninth floor master seemed to have thought of something. He slapped Zhang Yuetian's shoulder and said, Old Zhang, you won't regret it, right? Haha. Zhang Yuetian stared blankly at the girl in the distance. Li Xuanzong's expression was the most interesting. The moment the sword was pressed against his forehead, He didn't even have time to react. It was because he couldn't react in time. What kind of expert could achieve such a feat? At that moment, the black-robed man beside Li Xuanzong suddenly turned around and fled. He was very fast, and in the blink of an eye, he was already in the sky. But at that moment, the sword at Li Xuanzong's glabella suddenly vanished. The next moment, a bloody head suddenly fell slowly from the distant sky. Instant kill. Everyone in the surroundings was astounded to the extreme when they witnessed this scene, including Li Xuanzong. How powerful was the black-robed man? He was also in the Dharma realm. He was instantly killed just like that? It was an instant kill. Not far away, the plain-robed old man from Omura Granary Academy had an expression of disbelief as well. Under the moonlight, although the woman's face could not be seen, she was still as beautiful as a painting. She was like a goddess from the upper realm, untainted by the mortal world. The plain-robed elder stared at the plain-robed woman. You are a sword immortal. You. Right at this moment, the woman in a plain dress stretched out her hand lightly. Chi. Without any warning, the plain-robed old man's head flew into the air. Blood gushed out like a fountain. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned. The plain-robed old man, who was at the peak of the 10,000 techniques realm, was killed in an instant? Even the 9th floor master, who was standing not too far away, was dumbfounded. Wasn't that the peak of 10,000 arts realm? He was killed just like that? However, when he remembered that the person in front of him was a sword immortal, he felt relieved. A sword immortal. Had there ever been a sword immortal in the entire Azure state? There were experts who were not weaker than sword immortals, but there had never been a sword immortal. On the other side, the surrounding 10,000 laws realm experts were already trembling. Suddenly, a green sword flashed through the battlefield, and then... Chi. Not far away in the sky, 2 afterimages fell from the sky without any warning, and then they were nailed to the ground by 2 sword lights. These 2 people were the 2 experts from the dark world who had killed Old Man Ji earlier. At this moment, the 2 of them were nailed to the ground. They stared at the woman in the plain dress under the moonlight, their eyes filled with horror. At this moment, a Dharma realm expert suddenly stood up and bowed deeply to the woman in the plain dress. Senior, the plain-dressed woman suddenly shook her head. Don't say anything. Let me kill a few people in peace. As her voice fell, her jade-like hand gently pointed at the old man who had spoken. Chi. The old man's head flew into the air without any warning. In the next moment, the woman in a plain dress made a light gesture with her fair hand, and then the green sword flashed through the air like a butterfly flying through flowers. Hiss, 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 hiss. In practically an instant, the heads of over 10 Dharma realm experts in the surroundings had fallen to the ground. Moreover, over 10 strands of blood sprayed into the air, and it was an extremely magnificent scene. 6 people were still alive on the ground below. Besides the 9th Pavilion Master and Zhongyue Tian, there was Li Xuanzong, the 2 assassins from the Dark Dimension, and the young man from Dayun Karaki Academy that the plain-robed old man had brought here earlier. At this moment, Li Xuanzong's face was ashen. A sword immortal. He knew that there was definitely someone standing behind Yi Xian, but he'd never imagined that it would be a sword immortal standing behind Yi Xian. When he thought up to here, Li Xuanzong couldn't help but glance coldly at Yi Xian who lay on the ground nearby. At this moment, he couldn't help but curse in his heart. Why didn't you say so earlier that you had a sword immortal standing behind you? If I did, then how could I have fallen to such a state? Unfortunately, he'd never thought about it. Even if Yi Xian had told him, he wouldn't have believed it. Or it should be said that no one would have believed him. A sword immortal? An existence that's practically never appeared in Pine Prefecture. Suddenly, a green sword was pressed against the center of Li Xuanzong's forehead, and then the woman's voice resounded. Didn't you want to look for me just now? Li Xuanzong stared fixedly at the woman, and then he suddenly revealed a savage smile. You can kill me, but you can't. At this moment, the green sword suddenly trembled violently. OM. Along with a sword howl, Li Xuanzong's body fell to the ground. However, his soul was being stared fixedly at by the green sword. Li Xuanzong gazed at the woman with disbelief. No. Separating the soul from the body. How could you possibly accomplish that? Suddenly, the woman's voice resounded. If you're still alive, Then you can get up and learn a new sword technique. As soon as she finished speaking, Yi Xian, who was lying on the ground, suddenly moved, and it didn't take long for him to crawl up. Even though his entire body was covered in injuries and was in a horrible state, he still crawled up. After he crawled up, he immediately walked over to Mo Yunqi's side, and then he kicked Mo Yunqi's foot lightly. Stop playing dead. Get up. Mo Yunqi suddenly opened his eyes and gazed at Yi Xian. How did you know that I'm still alive? As soon as he spoke, blood seeped out of his mouth. Yi Xian spoke indifferently. You fought it just now. Mo Yunqi was speechless. After that, Yi Xian walked over to Bai Zai and Ji Anji. Both of them weren't dead, but they were on the verge of it. Obviously, Li Xuanzong had intended to torture them just now, so he hadn't chosen to kill them. Yi Xian poured out 2 golden sour elixirs and fed them to the two. Bai Zai looked at Yi Xian and said, I want to become stronger. Yi Xian nodded. Put on your pants first. Bai Zai had been sent flying from the impact, so his pants were already tattered. It should be said that they were all gone. At this moment, it could be said that a large portion of his spring scenery was exposed. Bai Zai was speechless. Yi Xian walked in front of Ji Anji, who looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian patted Ji Anji's shoulder lightly, then he turned and walked to a spot not far away. He bowed slightly at the plain-dressed woman in the sky. In the sky, the plain-dressed woman spoke indifferently. How does it feel to be bullied? Yi Xian said in a deep voice. Not good. The plain-dressed woman said calmly. But you will still be bullied in the future. Remember, if your temper is greater than your strength, then you are an idiot. If you have a temper, that's fine. For example, like me, I can chop whoever I want. With that said, the green sword suddenly flew to the side. Chi! Not far away, the head of a dark world assassin that had been nailed to the ground instantly flew into the air. Yi Xian was speechless. The plain-dressed woman spoke indifferently. Did you vent your anger? Yi Xian nodded. The plain-dressed woman said, But you don't have the strength to do so. Yi Xian fell silent for a moment before he said, I'm still young. Young. The plain-dressed woman said coldly, When I was your age, I was already invincible in the world. Yi Xian was speechless. The woman in a plain dress said, Never mind. I'm afraid there won't be another outstanding person like me in the myriad of worlds in the universe. Yi Xian's face darkened. At this moment, the plain-dressed woman's right hand suddenly moved, and the green sword pressed against Li Xuanzong's soul body. This sword skill is called soul fixation. As the name implies, it targets the soul. If the opponent is a soul body, the might of your strike will increase by more than a few times. It's fine even if the opponent doesn't have a soul. Soul fixation will target his soul. Many people in the world have powerful bodies but weak souls. Soul fixation is a strike that targets their weakness. Once your sword strikes, all demons, ghosts, and spirits will be transformed into nothingness. Yi Xian hurriedly nodded. All right, I'll learn it. The plain-dressed woman nodded slightly. This sword technique is also a type of sword Dao faith. As for what kind of faith it is, comprehend it yourself. If you can comprehend it, then it's your ability. If you can't, then you have to comprehend it for me. Don't embarrass me. Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, the plain-dressed woman moved her hand slightly. Hiss! The green sword pierced Li Xuanzong's soul, and in an instant, Li Xuanzong completely disappeared from this world. The nearby 9th floor master and Jiang Yuetian couldn't help but shiver at this scene. She killed him like he was killing a chicken. That was a Dharma realm expert. She killed him just like that. Meanwhile, the green sword suddenly arrived above the 9th floor master and Jiang Yuetian's heads. Their expressions changed drastically when they witnessed this scene. Right at this moment, Yi Xian hurriedly said, Moss! At this moment, the mysterious woman said indifferently, Don't worry, I'm not going to kill them. Hearing this, the 9th floor master and Jiang Yuetian immediately heaved sighs of relief. At this moment, the mysterious woman's voice sounded again. If it weren't for the two of you, I'm afraid he wouldn't even have a corpse left. Forget it. As soon as she finished speaking, she flicked her finger, and 2 rays of sword light suddenly entered their bodies. Their bodies trembled violently. Meanwhile, the mysterious woman suddenly said, These 2 rays of sword light can eliminate all the impurities within your bodies. Both of you can improve in a year at most. Both of them were stunned when they heard this, and then they knelt down on one knee at the same time. Thank you. Both of their voices were trembling. Right at this moment, a powerful aura suddenly swept over from afar, and it didn't take long for a black-robed old man to appear within their fields of vision. It didn't take long for the black-robed old man to appear here. He glanced at the plain-robed old man's corpse on the ground, and his expression instantly turned cold when he saw that the old man had been sliced into pieces. It didn't take long for him to turn around to look at the woman in a plain dress, and he spoke ferociously. "Who gave you the gall to kill a member of my Grand Cloud Granary Academy?" The ninth floor master and Xueqi had extremely strange expressions on their faces. After a moment of silence, the woman suddenly said, "Do I not look like an expert?" The others were speechless. Chapter 106. Hearing the woman's words, Yi Xian's face was filled with black lines. After not seeing her for a while, why did this mysterious sister become a little funny? Did she change people? Not far away, the ninth building master and Xueqi looked at the black-robed old man with extremely strange expressions. Did this old man take too many fake pills? But on second thought, they were relieved. The Great Cloud Empire's Karaki Academy was really a top force in Qingzhou. In Jiang country, it was not a top force, but a transcendental force. In Jiang country, they could look up to the sky. Because they looked down on this small Jiang country from the bottom of their hearts. Even if the people in this place were strong, how strong could they be? But soon, the black-robed old man found that something was wrong. What was wrong? Because at this moment, he found that the ground was covered with corpses. And these corpses were all Dharma realm experts. Something was wrong. The black-robed old man frowned and turned to look at the youth brought by the plain-robed old man. The youth lowered his head slightly and did not dare to speak. How would he dare to speak? Just now, the plain-robed old man was killed by a sword. Seeing that the youth did not speak, the black-robed old man's expression immediately turned cold. Good for nothing. With that, he looked at the woman not far away and was about to speak. At this moment, a sword suddenly pressed against the black-robed old man's eyebrows without warning. The sword penetrated half an inch, and blood flowed out. The black-robed old man was stunned. The woman's voice rang out. "Don't say anything. Now, call for the strongest people. If they are too weak, there is no meaning in killing them. It's not fun." Everyone. The black-robed old man stared at the woman in the plain dress. "What are you?" "Chi." The black-robed old man's right arm was suddenly cut off. Blood sprayed out like a fountain. The black-robed old man's face turned pale in an instant. Under the moonlight, the woman in the plain dress used her right hand to gently stroke her hair behind her ear. "You are too weak. I don't want to talk to you. Now, call for help. Call for help immediately." The black-robed old man stared at the woman in the plain dress. After a moment, he crushed a voice transmission stone. Really call for help? Of course he had to call for help. No matter who the person in front of him was, there was only one thing he could do now, and that was to get the person above to come out and talk to the woman in the plain dress. Of course, he knew that Ayumura Karaki Academy could be considered to have failed this time. The person in front of them was so strong that it made them feel despair. At this time, the green sword suddenly turned around and arrived in front of Yi Xian, pointing straight at Yi Xian. Everyone was puzzled. Under the moonlight, the woman in the plain dress said coldly, "Tell me, where did you go wrong?" Wrong? Yi Xian was stunned. Then, he pondered for a moment. "I made a mistake by getting into trouble." Pa! The green sword suddenly hit Yi Xian's arm. In an instant, Yi Xian's arm turned red. Yi Xian gritted his teeth in pain. The woman in a plain dress said coldly, "Cause trouble? Was that wrong? Was that wrong? If I'm wrong, then you've provoked too little. Why bother me with such a trivial matter? What are you thinking? Can't you cause a bigger trouble?" "Yi Xian, everyone," the woman in the plain dress said coldly, "continue to think about where did you go wrong." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "I'm weak." Pa! The green sword instantly hit Yi Xian's right arm. Yi Xian's entire body twitched, because the sword contained a trace of sharp sword qi. The sword qi entered his body, and it didn't just hit his arm, but his entire body and nerves. This was really F***ing painful. In the air, The woman in the plain dress sneered. Weak. You know you're weak? But this isn't your fault. These people are bullying the weak, so it's normal that you can't fight them. Continue to think about where did you go wrong. Yi Xian was silent for a long time. Finally, he raised his head and looked at the woman in the plain dress. I'm not wrong. The woman in the plain dress didn't say anything. Yi Xian said fiercely, these people captured my sister, so I want to kill them. They came to take revenge on me. Yes, I'm weak, I was beaten, and I admit it. But I'm not wrong. If I could do it again, I would still kill them. Yes, I'm weak, but I'll kill anyone who dares to bully my sister and friends. The woman spoke indifferently. What if I can't? Yi Xian said ferociously. I will do it even if I can't do it. Even if I die standing, I won't kneel and suffer. The woman fell silent for a moment, and then she said, Release your sword intent. Yi Xian released his sword intent when he heard this. A short while later, the woman spoke softly. There are many types of sword intent. Do you know what it is? Yi Xian shook his head. The woman fell silent for a moment, and then she said, Your sword intent. At this point, she suddenly stopped. Yi Xian raised his head to look at the woman. She fell silent for a moment, and she was about to speak. However, the horizon in the distance suddenly trembled violently, and it didn't take long for a figure to appear within their fields of vision. The black-robed old man's expression instantly became slightly excited when he saw this figure. On the other hand, the 9th Pavilion Master and Jiang Yuetian had solemn expressions on their faces. Solemn. Because the person who'd arrived might be an expert at the peak of the myriad techniques realm or above. The figure in the sky suddenly said, Who are you? The woman glanced indifferently at the figure. What? You're the strongest in your academy? The figure spoke indifferently. Shouldn't you give us an explanation for killing so many students of my academy? Right at this moment, the green sword in front of Yi Xian suddenly shot violently towards the sky. In the distance, the illusory figure suddenly raised his hands. In the next moment, he pressed forward lightly, and the space in front of him distorted into a strange shape. However, the green sword pierced through the space and arrived in front of the illusory figure. The figure was horrified, and he swiftly pressed his right hand forward. It was like a mountain was pressing down, and the force contained within his palm was probably capable of destroying half of the imperial capital. However, the green sword tore through that force with ease, and then it pierced through the figure's palm. In the end, it arrived at the center of the figure's forehead. Bang! The figure shook violently, and then he revealed his true form. It was an emaciated old man. The old man gazed at the woman with disbelief, and he was beyond shocked in his heart. This sword had already surpassed his understanding. The woman spoke indifferently. Explain? You want an explanation? My explanation is that I haven't had my fill of killing them, and I want to kill a few more. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly tapped downwards with her left hand. Hiss! A ray of light pierced through the center of the black-robed old man's forehead. The old man's figure crashed to the ground. The old man's pupils constricted slightly when he witnessed this scene, and he stared fixedly at the woman. Are you from the central continent? Meanwhile, a ray of light flashed. Hiss! The old man's entire right arm instantly flew into the air. Under the moonlight, the woman had her left hand behind her back while her right hand held a strand of beautiful hair by her ear. Cut the crap. Continue calling for reinforcements, and then allow me to kill in peace. The 9th floor master laughed bitterly. He was naturally aware of what had happened to Yi Xian on the Cloud Vessel and the Immortal Indulgence Pavilion all those years ago, and he knew about Dao Yi. He could imagine how helpless and despairing the 3rd floor master and the others felt when they faced this woman. She's clearly saying that I'm stronger than you, and I intend to bully you until you die. The black-robed old man's expression was unsightly to the extreme. Call for reinforcements? Are you asking me to give my life away? I've failed. I've really failed. Not only have I failed, I've even suffered heavy losses. Right at this moment, the woman suddenly said, Where's that academy of yours? Where's the academy? The old man's expression instantly changed when he heard this. The woman spoke indifferently beneath the moonlight. Point me in a direction. Meanwhile, the 9th floor master hurriedly pointed to the right. Senior, it's over there. The woman nodded slightly. The old man was about to speak when the green sword suddenly pierced through the center of his forehead. Hiss. Blood sprayed. A moment later, the woman closed her eyes slowly, and then she pressed the fingers of her right hand together and pointed lightly towards the right. Go! OM. A sword howl resounded through the sky. Under everyone's gaze, the green sword disappeared into the distant horizon along with the skinny old man's head. The sword carried the old man's head all the way. The distant Great Cloud Empire. The Great Cloud Empire was the largest empire in Pine Prefecture, and it occupied almost a third of the prefecture's territory. The territory it occupied was called the Great Cloud Territory. Besides the Great Cloud Empire, there were many other formidable powers and clans in the Great Cloud Territory, and Karaki Academy was one of them. The Great Cloud Empire's Karaki Academy could be said to be the strongest academy in Pine Prefecture. On this night, the tranquility of the Great Cloud Territory was suddenly broken by a sword light. The sword light pierced through the Great Cloud Territory like a shooting star and arrived at the imperial capital of the Great Cloud Empire. At this moment, the entire Great Cloud Empire was shocked. Countless experts raised their heads to look at the sword light, their eyes filled with shock. A sword immortal! A sword immortal! At this moment, almost all the experts in the Great Cloud Empire were seething with excitement. A real sword immortal! Under the gazes of countless people, the sword carried the old man's head to a tall mountain, and Karaki Academy was located on this mountain. When the sword arrived, everyone in Karaki Academy was shocked, and they looked up at it. Some of the experts of Karaki Academy acted as if they were facing a formidable enemy, but none of them dared to stop it. In the end, the sword and the head were nailed to the top of the highest hall of Karaki Academy. OM. In an instant, the entire mountain shook violently as if an earthquake was happening. At this moment, a voice resounded in the sky above Karaki Academy. If Karaki Academy isn't satisfied, then feel free to seek revenge. I'm invincible, so do as you wish. Everyone was speechless. P.S. Yesterday, many readers said that I was deliberately keeping them in suspense. In fact, that's not the case. I just want to write every chapter well so that every chapter is meaningful, so that you will feel that the money you spent to read my book is worth it. That's all. Chapter 107. I am invincible. You can do as you wish. The entire Karaki College was dead silent. Everyone was looking at the sword. They all recognized the head on the sword. It was the head of one of Karaki Academy's guardian elders. In Karaki College, his strength was definitely in the top 5. But at this moment, his head was nailed there. Karaki College had offended a sword immortal? Not only were the Karaki College students dumbfounded, but the entire Great Cloud Empire was also dumbfounded. Sword immortal. This was the first time a sword immortal appeared in Qingzhou, but it was because of Karaki College. What did Karaki College do? At this moment, countless people were undoubtedly very curious. Qingzhou, country of Jiang. Under the moonlight, the plain-dressed woman's dress looked even more spotless. Her back was still facing the crowd, so no one could see her face. The plain-dressed woman pointed to the far right side of the sky. That sword, you have half a year to get it back for me. If you can't, I will break your legs. With that, the plain-dressed woman disappeared under the moonlight. She left. Ninth floor master and Jiang Yuetian looked at each other, then at Yi Xian, who was not far away. Yi Xian walked in front of the two and bowed deeply. Thank you for tonight. If not for their help, they would have been long dead. As for the mysterious woman, she must have been alarmed when he forcefully activated the prison pagoda. Seeing Yi Xian express his gratitude so respectfully, ninth floor master felt very comfortable. The worst thing to do when helping others was to help an ingrate. Ninth floor master lightly patted Yi Xian's shoulder. Young friend, the two of us should be the ones thanking you. With your master's help, the two of us will be able to reach the next level in half a year. To us, this is undoubtedly a grace of rebirth. If there were no other opportunities, they would not have been able to improve further. But now, with the mysterious woman's help, they could once again break through. To them, this was truly a grace of rebirth. Jiang Yuetian nodded and looked at Yi Xian. What do you plan to do next? If not, you can come to the palace to recuperate for a period of time. Since you and Little Ninth are friends, you will have a companion. Roping them in. The ninth floor master glanced at Jiang Yuetian and hurriedly said, You can come to my drunken immortal inn. If you're willing, I'm willing to bring you to the Central Plains. My drunken immortal in will definitely treat you as an esteemed guest. Naturally, he also wanted to rope them in. This was not entirely because of the mysterious woman behind Yi Xian, but because Yi Xian himself was not bad. Furthermore, with a sword immortal nurturing him, how bad could he be in the future? Yi Xian was still young and would encounter difficulties. If he didn't help him now, he wouldn't have the chance to help him in the future. Yi Xian glanced at the two of them and shook his head. I appreciate the two seniors' kind intentions. Next, I want to rebuild Azure Billow Academy. Rebuild Song Lan Academy. Jiang Yuetian and the ninth floor head looked at each other. Both of them sighed softly and said nothing. At the side, Ji Anji glanced at Yi Xian, and tears flickered in his eyes. At this moment, the ninth floor head nodded. Young friend, rebuilding Azure Billow Academy will definitely require a lot of things. If you need anything, feel free to come to the Drunken Immortal Inn and let me know. I will get people to help you to the best of my ability. Jiang Yuetian nodded as well. As for the manpower, I will get the people from the Ministry of Works to help. Hearing this, Yi Xian bowed deeply to the two of them once more. Many thanks. Jiang Yuetian smiled. It's just a small matter. Young friend, there's no need to stand on ceremony with us. You're treating us like outsiders. The ninth floor head nodded. Exactly, there's no need to stand on ceremony with us. Yi Xian nodded. Seniors, I still have many things to deal with, so I'll be taking my leave. As soon as he finished speaking, he cupped his fists towards the two of them, and then turned to look at Mo Yunqi and the others. Pack up the spoils, let's go. Spoils of war. There were more than 10 Dharma realm experts who died here, including several Dharma pinnacle experts and one above Dharma pinnacle expert. How could the spoils of these people be bad? Of course they wouldn't be bad. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Mo Yunqi and Bai Zhe walked to the side. Soon, everything on the ground was cleaned up by them. Jiang Yuetian and the ninth floor head didn't say anything. Although they were a little jealous, they knew very well that these things should indeed belong to Yi Xian and the others. These people were killed by that mysterious woman. Soon, Yi Xian and the others disappeared from the sight of the ninth floor head and Jiang Yuetian. The ninth floor head said softly, This person is not impatient and is very loyal. We didn't help the wrong person this time. Jiang Yuetian nodded. Karaki Academy was really stupid not to accept him back then. And this old man Ji Sai, the ninth floor head said softly. I'm afraid this matter is not over yet. Jiang Yuetian looked at the ninth floor head. The ninth floor head said solemnly, The headquarters of Karaki Academy is not in the Azure province, but the central divine continent. And the Dark World, their headquarters should also be in the Azure province. This time, they suffered such a big loss, especially at the end. We don't know what that senior did. I reckon these two forces won't let this matter rest. Jiang Yuetian said solemnly, This is a sword immortal we're talking about. Will they really offend him? The ninth floor head shook his head. In our eyes, a sword immortal is undoubtedly an existence that we look up to, but in a place like the central divine continent, a sword immortal. I'm afraid he can't be considered a top expert. A sword immortal can't make them bow down to him. Jiang Yuetian said softly, Let's wait and see if they will let this matter rest. The ninth floor head nodded. Let's wait and see. Great Cloud Empire. Karaki Academy. Karaki Academy was located in the south of the imperial capital of Great Cloud Empire. The academy was built on a mountain range. The mountain range was so huge that one couldn't see the end of it. The mountain range was shrouded in mist all year round, making it look like a paradise. This mountain range was no ordinary mountain range. There was a spirit vein under the mountain range. Although Karaki Academy was not the headquarters of Great Cloud Empire, it was the largest academy in the Azure province. Among all the Karaki academies in the Azure province, Great Cloud Empire's Karaki Academy could be said to be the leader. Tonight was undoubtedly a great humiliation for Great Cloud Empire's Karaki Academy. A venerable protector of Karaki Academy had been nailed to the Great Noble Hall of Karaki Academy. The Great Noble Hall enshrined the deans and ancestors of Karaki Academy. It could be said to be the most sacred place in Karaki Academy. No one went to retrieve the sword. Firstly, they didn't dare to, and secondly, some people didn't even dare to approach the sword. The sword emitted a sharp sword energy that even a myriad Dharma realm expert wouldn't dare to approach recklessly. It was undoubtedly a sword immortal. Everyone knew that Xueqi Academy had offended a sword immortal. Inside a large hall, a middle-aged man sat in the upper part of the hall. He wore an ink-white robe and held a scroll in his left hand. He exuded a scholarly aura. This person was the dean of Xueqi Academy, Mu Qingxian. On both sides of the hall stood 8 or 9 people, both men and women. All of them were at the peak of the myriad Dharma realm. After an unknown period of time, Mu Qingxian suddenly closed the scroll in his hand and said softly, "It has been confirmed that the sword immortal came from the Azure province, and several people from our previous academy went to the Azure province. Their goal was to kill a young man named Yi Xian in order to obtain the reward of Xueqi Academy in the state of Jiang. Unfortunately, our state of Jiang not only lost a genius, but also several myriad Dharma realm experts. Now, even a venerable protector has been killed. According to the scouts, 2 myriad Dharma realm assassins from the dark world also went there. Both of them are dead. In addition, there are also some experts from other forces. A total of 16 people have fallen. With such strength, he is undoubtedly a sword immortal." With that, he glanced at the people in the hall. "What do you think?" There was silence in the hall. A sword immortal. That wasn't something that Xueqi Academy could afford to offend. They had to suffer this loss. Even though it was slightly embarrassing, it was undoubtedly the wisest decision. Right at this moment, an old man stood out. "It's fine if he only killed. We deserve to offend a sword immortal. However, this person nailed his sword to the top of my Xueqi Academy's righteous hall. This is an insult to my Xueqi Academy, and my Xueqi Academy will become the laughingstock of the entire Qingzhou province. My Xueqi Academy's students will not be able to raise their heads in front of outsiders." When he spoke up to hear, he shook his head slightly. "We can't just let this matter go. We can't just let it go." As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere here instantly became slightly heavy. If we can't just let it go, then does that mean we have to continue fighting? Fight a sword immortal? How? With what? Right at this moment, Mu Qingxian suddenly raised his head and looked towards the entrance of the hall. A shadow had suddenly appeared there. There was only a shadow and no one there. The expressions of everyone here changed slightly when they witnessed this scene, because they actually hadn't noticed when the shadow had appeared. Mu Xianqing spoke indifferently. "I never expected that the Master of the Dark Dimension would grace us with her presence. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you." The Master of the Dark Dimension. The expressions of everyone here changed when they heard this. The Master of the Dark Dimension was absolutely a name that struck terror in the hearts of everyone in Great Cloud Realm. The leader of the #1 assassin organization in Azure Prefecture. Or it should be said that it was the one and only assassin organization in Azure Prefecture. Meanwhile, a hoarse voice suddenly resounded. "Sect Master Mu, are we joining forces this time?" Joining forces? Mu Xuanqing's eyes narrowed slightly. "What gives you the confidence?" The Master of the Dark Dimension said, "It's just a sword immortal. It isn't difficult to kill him if we join forces." Mu Xianqing shook his head. "You can't kill him. Even if we join forces, we still won't be able to kill him." The Master of the Dark Dimension suddenly said, "Someone from the Central Divine Prefecture is rushing over." Mu Xianqing frowned slightly. "Your Dark Dimension really dares to stake everything on this? What's your objective? Just for the sake of revenge?" The Master of the Dark Dimension spoke indifferently. "A sword immortal has definitely cultivated to the Golden Core realm. If we kill him, it would be equivalent to hundreds of years of bitter cultivation, right?" Mu Xianqing spoke indifferently. "What's the price?" The Master of the Dark Dimension laughed coldly. "Isn't it true that riches are sought amidst danger?" Mu Xianqing fell silent. Meanwhile, the Master of the Dark Dimension spoke again. "It's an injured sword immortal." Mu Xuanqing's eyes narrowed slightly. "Why do you say that?" The Master of the Dark Dimension spoke indifferently. "If he wasn't injured, he would have come here a long time ago. Moreover, why would he appear in the Azure Prefecture? If it wasn't for some special reason, it would be utterly impossible for him to appear in the Azure Prefecture. So, he's definitely injured." Mu Xianqing spoke in a low voice. "That's just your guess." The Master of the Dark Dimension laughed coldly. "That attack of hers didn't just nail a guardian of your Xueqi Academy to death. but the reputation of your Karaki Academy that has existed for 1,000 years. If he doesn't die, then the students of your Karaki Academy will never be able to hold their heads up high. Mu Xianqing slowly clenched his right fist when he heard this. After a short moment, Mu Xianqing suddenly stood up. Send my orders to the headquarters to kill a sword immortal. Kill a sword immortal. Chapter 108. Qing Prefecture, State of Jiang. Songlan Academy. Songlan Academy was in ruins. Not only had the original hall of Songlan been destroyed, but even half of Mount Songlan had been destroyed. Yi Xian led Mo Yunqi and the others to the ruins. Yi Xian walked into the ruins and searched. It didn't take long for him to find something. A wine gourd. Old Man Ji's wine gourd. Mo Yunqi and Bai Zai's eyes instantly moistened when they saw the wine gourd. Ji Anji lowered his head slightly and clenched his fists tightly. Yi Xian held the wine gourd tightly, and a short moment later, he hung it on his waist. After that, he gazed at the ruins in front of him, fell silent for a moment, and then knelt down. He knelt. Besides kneeling for his younger sister, Yi Xian had never knelt to anyone in his entire life. He'd first come to Songlan Academy because Old Man Ji had saved his younger sister, but he'd truly fallen in love with this place later on. There was no scheming and no life and death here. He'd experienced warmth that he hadn't even experienced in the Yi family in Qingqing. Meanwhile, Mo Yunqi and the others walked over to Yi Xian's side and slowly knelt down. They bowed deeply 3 times to the ruins in front of them. Yi Xian held the wine gourd tightly, and his eyes were filled with determination. Old Man Ji, I'll take good care of them, and I'll bring back the students from the Shao Dao in Song Mountain. In the future, I'll take them to the Central Divine Prefecture's General Institute to fulfill your final wish. As soon as he finished speaking, he stood up. Right at this moment, an unexpected change suddenly occurred. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically without any warning, and he instantly fell to the ground. At the same time, his body twitched incessantly as if he was having an epileptic fit. Seeing this scene, the expressions of Mo Yunqi and the other 2 changed greatly. The 3 of them hurriedly surrounded Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian's facial features were already twisted together, and he was completely deformed. The 3 of them were horrified when they saw this. Ji Anji hurriedly said, I'll get a doctor. She turned around and was about to leave when Yi Xian suddenly pulled her back. Yi Xian said with a trembling voice, No need, I will be affected by the backlash. You guys guard me, wait for a while. Ah! Backlash. The mysterious woman had warned him not to rashly activate the World Prison Pagoda, but he had already activated it. The moment he activated it, he was already prepared to die. Not only that, but every time the mysterious woman attacked, it could be said to be an extremely great burden to the World Prison Tower. In the end, this burden would be borne by him, the owner of the World Prison Tower. Since there was no backlash earlier, it was obvious that the mysterious woman had forcefully suppressed it. Right now, he felt as if his entire body was being torn apart. This kind of tearing pain was truly unbearable. Activating the World Prison Pagoda, coupled with the mysterious woman's attack, these 2 backlashes added together. Even he couldn't stand it anymore. On the ground, Yi Xian's entire body twitched ceaselessly. Not only that, his entire body seemed as if it had suffered a heavy blow, and it was covered in cracks as if it would shatter at any moment. It was truly terrifying. Seeing Yi Xian's current state, Mo Yunqi and the other 2's faces were filled with shock. The 3 of them were currently at a loss. Yi Xian curled up into a ball, and his body was still twitching ceaselessly. At this time, how much he wished that he would faint. But he knew that he couldn't faint. If he fainted now, he might really never wake up again. He couldn't die. He still had to find his sister, he still had to find Enlancio, he still had to rebuild Songlan Academy, he still had, endure. He had to endure. Yi Xian's arms were crossed, and his entire body twitched violently on the ground. At the side, Mo Yunqi suddenly sat paralyzed on the ground. Looking at Yi Xian on the ground, Mo Yunqi's tears suddenly flowed down. He wiped the tears off his face. I'm really F*King weak. F*King, I'm just an idiot, a useless idiot. Bai Zai's fists were tightly clenched, and his face was expressionless. His body was trembling. At the side, Jianji looked at Yi Xian. She was expressionless, but in her eyes, tears kept flowing and now, there were only 4 of them left in Songlan Academy. If anything happened to Yi Xian, after an unknown period of time, the sky had already turned white. The sky was bright. At this time, Yi Xian's body gradually calmed down. Mo Yunqi and the other 2 had been guarding, and the 3 of them did not leave even a step. At noon, Yi Xian's fingers moved slightly. Seeing this scene, Jianji hurriedly walked to Yi Xian's side. She grabbed Yi Xian's arm and softly said, "Ru, how is it?" Yi Xian slowly stood up, and he slowly opened his eyes. The next moment, his body stiffened. "Is the sky not bright yet?" Hearing this, Jianji's body trembled slightly. She looked at Yi Xian's eyes, and at this moment, Yi Xian's eyes were actually empty. It was completely empty. Mo Yunqi and Bai Zhe were also stunned. Yi Xian rubbed his eyes, and then he fell silent. It was not that the sky was not bright, but he was blind. At this time the mysterious woman's voice suddenly sounded in Yi Xian's mind. "Your physical body is strong enough to withstand the backlash of this pagoda, but your eyes are the weakest part of your body, and your eyes are not able to withstand the power of this pagoda's backlash. The reason why I did not make a move was because if I did, I would have to suppress this pagoda, and if I forcibly suppressed it, the seal of this pagoda would probably shatter in an instant. Not only would the seal shatter, the power of this pagoda might also instinctively resist me. If that happened, the first to die would be you." Yi Xian was silent for a moment, and then he grinned. "It's nothing." The mysterious woman said again, "Even if your eyeballs are gone, you still have a sword. In the future, use the sword as your eyes, and use swordsmen to cultivate a pair of sword eyes." "Sword eyes?" Yi Xian was stunned and asked in his heart, "What do you mean?" The mysterious woman spoke indifferently. "You've always used the sword as your body, so it's very normal for you to cultivate a pair of sword eyes. Use your heart as a sword, and the sword as your eyes. Simply speaking, in the future, you won't use your eyes to look at the world, but your heart. Only when you look at the world with your heart will you be able to see its essence. Of course, you haven't come into contact with that level yet, but you can start moving towards that level. Moreover, the sword eyes are sword eyes, so in the future, your eyes will be able to kill as well. Of course, the precondition is that you're able to cultivate it." Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "You still need to ask me." The mysterious woman said, "It might be very painful." "Possible." Yi Xian laughed bitterly. What the mysterious woman said was possible. Then it wasn't possible, and it should be extremely painful. Yi Xian shook his head. "Senior, do you think that I'm afraid of pain?" The mysterious woman fell silent for a moment, and then she said, "I'll pass down a cultivation technique to you later, and you can cultivate according to it. Moreover, it will affect your image if you don't have eyes. In the future, once you're accomplished in your cultivation, you can go look for a pair of eyes that can endure your sword, like a true dragon or spirit phoenix. They're pretty as well. In any case, you can look for them yourself in the future. True dragon or spirit phoenix." Yi Xian was dumbfounded. Aren't they divine beasts of the heavens and the earth of legend? Look for their eyes? Go and die. Meanwhile, the mysterious woman said, "There's one more thing. You have to find a second Tao law, and perfecting this pagoda with a Tao law will mean that it'll be much easier for me. Moreover, you have to work hard to improve your own strength as well. Remember, your enemies aren't just outside, but inside as well." Yi Xian nodded. "Understood." The mysterious woman said, "I need to rest. Don't disturb me if there's nothing important, and don't activate this pagoda at will either. This pagoda isn't something that you can activate right now. Once you do, those things that are suppressed by this pagoda will be extremely happy." Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "Senior, are you all right?" The mysterious woman said indifferently, "Worry more about yourself." As soon as she finished speaking, a lot of information suddenly appeared in Yi Xian's mind. A lot. Soul-setting sword. Sword eye technique. A cultivation method and a sword technique. After a while, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Actually, he was still very lucky. With the mysterious woman's help, he had taken many fewer detours than others. In terms of cultivation methods and sword techniques, he didn't feel any pressure. Unfortunately, every time the mysterious woman made a move, he would end up in a miserable state. Now, he really didn't dare to let the mysterious woman make a move. He was blind this time, but who knew what would happen next time? Moreover, he could clearly feel that there were many dangerous existences in this prison pagoda. This was the feeling that the prison pagoda gave him. If the mysterious woman made a move 2 more times, the Tao laws in this pagoda would probably shatter before it could gather qi. At that time, the first person to die would be him. The mysterious woman's move was a good thing for him, but it was actually a huge hidden danger. Moreover, he didn't want to test the mysterious woman. He knew that if he had the slightest reliance, the mysterious woman would definitely be the first to give up on him. Previously, if he didn't want to use his life to activate this prison pagoda, the mysterious woman might really not make a move. He wasn't anyone to the mysterious woman, so he really didn't have the qualifications to let her help him. He still had to rely on himself. His own strength was the way of the king. At this moment, the spirit-elegant sword in Yi Xian's body suddenly trembled slightly, as though it was expressing something. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the spirit-elegant sword appeared in his palm. Although he couldn't see the spirit-elegant sword, he could feel it. Holding the spirit-elegant sword, Yi Xian's lips curled up slightly. From now on you are my eyes. At this moment, Mo Yunqi suddenly walked in front of Yi Xian. He glanced at Yi Xian. Bandit Yi. Yi Xian shook his head. You don't have to comfort me. I'm fine. Mo Yunqi and the other 2 were silent. Yi Xian said softly, now, only the 4 of us are left in Songlan Academy. As for me, I want to rebuild Songlan Academy. I want it to become the strongest academy in the Azure province. No, I want Songlan Academy to become the best academy in the Azure firmament world. As he spoke, he turned to face the ruins. Elder Ji, watch from the heavens. I, Yi Xian, will do what I say. I want the headquarters of Songlan Academy in the Divine Central Continent to know that if they look down on us today, in the future, I, Yi Xian, will make it so that they can't hope to reach up to us. Chapter 109. Rebuild Songlan Academy. In Yi Xian chose a new location. It wasn't far from the original Kanglin Point. It was located on a mountain not far from the back of the mountain. The mountain wasn't high, only about 100 feet. In front of the mountain, there was a huge waterfall. Countless streams of water poured down from the top of the mountain. It looked quite spectacular. With the help of the Drunken Immortal Inn and the Jiang country's royal family, the construction of the Kanglin Academy went very smoothly. On the mountain, nearly 1,000 people were busy every day. As for the materials, almost all of them were bought by the Drunken Immortal Inn. This time, the Drunken Immortal Inn and the Jiang country's imperial family had spent a lot of money to rope in Yi Xian and the others. Yi Xian naturally wouldn't refuse the Drunken Immortal Inn and the imperial family's attempts to rope him in. One more friend is always better than one more enemy. Moreover, Songlan Academy would still be in the country of Jiang in the future and would require the care of these 2 forces. At the top of the mountain, in front of a boulder, Yi Xian's group of 4 gathered together. In front of the 4 of them, there was a large pile of things. Most of these things were supreme spiritual weapons, and there were even bright rank items. These things were obtained when they cleaned up the corpses of the Dharma realm powerhouses. In addition to these, there were also some that they obtained in the secret realm. A lot. In any case, the 4 of them could be said to be as rich as a nation. Yi Xian glanced at the treasures in front of him. You can choose first. Keep the ones that you can use for yourselves. As for the rest, we'll keep some for ourselves. The rest can be auctioned off for money. Money. What was the most important thing for the reconstruction of Azure Billow Academy? Naturally, it was money. The thought of all kinds of expenses gave him a headache. Mo Yunqi and the other 2 looked at each other. In the end, the 3 of them shook their heads. Mo Yunqi said, leave them for the construction academy. Yi Xian shook his head. Right now, there are only 4 of us in Azure Billow Academy. Our battle prowess cannot be weak. The 3 of you will each pick a defensive item. Mo Yunqi and the other 2 looked at each other. Finally, Mo Yunqi nodded. I'll go first then. As he spoke, he waved his right hand and a pair of black boots appeared in his hand. Light rank lower grade. Mo Yunqi immediately put on his boots, and very soon, his whole body actually floated up. Mo Yunqi glanced at his feet and said in shock, This thing can increase my speed by at least 30% to 40%. With my current speed, I'm afraid that even a divine combination realm expert might not be able to catch up to me. Yi Xian nodded his head. You are currently at the peak of the high sky realm. You must reach the nether passage realm as soon as possible. As he spoke, he pointed at Jianji and Bai Zhe. The two of you need to reach the nether passage realm as soon as possible. Bai Zhe and Jianji nodded. Yi Xian said again, choose. Bai Zhe looked at the treasures in front of him. In the end, he chose a pair of black bracers. The gauntlet was completely black and made of unknown material. There were even some beast markings around the gauntlet. This pair of arm guards was also a low-grade bright rank. Bai Zhe put on the gauntlet with both hands. In an instant, the gauntlet suddenly shrank, and in the next moment, the beast markings around the gauntlet actually wriggled as if they were about to come to life. Bai Zhe looked at Yi Xian and the other two and said with some excitement, there is beast soul energy inside. With this gauntlet, my strength should be able to increase by about 40%. As he spoke, he seemed to have thought of something and looked at Yi Xian. Bandit, you also cultivate your physical body. This gauntlet is also for you. Yi Xian shook his head. There is no difference whether you use it or I use it. Bai Zhe glanced at Yi Xian and did not say anything, but a trace of warmth flowed through his heart. In fact, the four of them had long become one. It was the same no matter who used it. Yi Xian looked at Jianji, and Jianji glanced at the treasures in front of her. After a moment she shook her head. There is no need. Yi Xian nodded. I will find a good saber for you in the future. As he finished speaking, he kept all the treasures. Then, he faced Mo Yunqi and the other two. From now on, Anji will be in charge of supervising the construction of Zhonglan Academy. Bai Zhe will be in charge of exploring the depths of the mountains and finding some places suitable for cultivation. After that, we will plan to build some cultivation places. Are we recruiting? Mo Yunqi suddenly asked. Yi Xian nodded. We are recruiting. An academy naturally had to have students. However, we will not recruit randomly. We will have to go through strict selection. These will be discussed later. For now, let's first build Zhonglan Academy. As he spoke, he faced Mo Yunqi. Old Mo, your skin is thicker. Go down the mountain and spread the news. Just say that Zhonglan Academy is recruiting. Also, go and find out which scholars are there in the imperial capital, those who have great knowledge. In the future, our Zhonglan Academy will not only focus on cultivation. An academy is an academy. Naturally, books must be read. Mo Yunqi hesitated, then said, read. Yi Xian nodded. Not only must we cultivate the students' strength, we must also cultivate their qualities and improve their thinking. I don't want the future students of our academy to be mercenaries. Mo Yunqi quickly nodded. Right, don't be like those bastards from Xueqi Academy. Each and every one of them is shameless. Yi Xian nodded, then he faced Jianji. First, let people build a morning hall. Also, find a place with good feng shui. After the morning hall is built, we will go to Xueqi Academy to welcome back those students from Cong Mountain's Xiao Dao. Hearing this, Jianji slightly trembled. She glanced at Yi Xian, but didn't say anything. Yi Xian slowly stood up. He turned his head to face the horizon. They should all go home. After an hour, Yi Xian left Zhonglan Mountain. He arrived at a courtyard of Drunken Immortal Inn. Inside the courtyard, the 9th floor master personally came out to receive him. Inside the room, Yi Xian took out all the treasures from the prison pagoda. This is? The 9th floor master was a little surprised. Yi Xian said, Senior, these are the things I obtained previously. I hope that Senior can auction them off. The 9th floor master said in a low voice. You need money? Yi Xian nodded. He naturally needed money. Zhonglan Academy's construction couldn't be completely dependent on Drunken Immortal Inn and the Jiang country's royal family. This wasn't how people should act. Moreover, he had to prepare some cultivation resources for Mo Yunqi and the other two. Cultivation required money. In addition, when Zhonglan Academy recruited new students in the future, it would also require a lot of expenses. Money. He really needed money now. The 9th floor master thought for a moment, then nodded. These things of yours are not common objects. Some are even of the highest quality. If you auction them here, I'm afraid you won't be able to sell many of them. How about this? leave these things behind. I'll let the higher-ups appraise the price. Then our drunken immortal in will buy them and auction them off in Qingzhou. Don't worry, we won't treat little friend unfairly. At that time, if the price exceeds the price we offered little friend, we'll compensate little friend. How about it? Yi Xian thought for a moment, then nodded. All right. Then I'll be troubling senior. The ninth floor master smiled. Little friend, you're too kind. When he spoke up to this point, he suddenly withdrew a black card and passed it to Yi Xian. Little friend, this was personally issued by the second floor master. The second floor master asked me to pass a message to little friend. If little friend goes to the Central Divine Prefecture in the future, then please be a guest at Drunken Immortal Inn. Second floor master? Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. The ninth floor master nodded and smiled. The higher-ups of my Drunken Immortal Inn are already aware of what happened last night. Thanks to little friend and your master. I'm already the fifth floor master. Of course, I'm still responsible for the affairs of Jiang Country, and I'll be able to leave whenever little friend leaves Jiang Country in the future. So that's how it is. Yi Xian cupped his fists. Congratulations, senior. The ninth floor master shook his head and smiled. It's all thanks to your master. If I'm unable to improve further, then I'll probably die of old age in Jiang Country. As he spoke, he pointed at the black card in front of Yi Xian and said, Little friend, this card is the highest level VIP card of my Drunken Immortal Inn. With this card, all floor masters below the fifth floor master have to bow when they meet little friend. Moreover, with this card, little friend can mobilize the experts of my Drunken Immortal Inn to fight 3 times at will no matter where you go. Moreover, you don't have to pay any fees for auctioning anything in my Drunken Immortal Inn, and so long as it's something that belongs to my Drunken Immortal Inn, then my Drunken Immortal Inn will give you a 40% discount. Yi Xian took the black card, and then he cupped his fists once more to the ninth floor master and said, Senior, please tell the higher-ups of your inn that I, Yi Xian, will remember this kindness. The ninth floor master's smile became even more brilliant when he heard this. The reason why the Drunken Immortal Inn wanted to befriend Yi Xian was not only because Yi Xian had a sword immortal backing him, but also because of Yi Xian's innate talent and strength. He was a super genius that wasn't inferior to An Lanxiu. He might even become a sword immortal in the future. If Yi Xian really became a sword immortal, then it would be equivalent to having a sword immortal friend for the Drunken Immortal Inn. A sword immortal friend was the most powerful deterrent. Anyone who wanted to touch the Drunken Immortal Inn would have to think twice. Most importantly, it was impossible for the Drunken Immortal Inn to rope in a famous sword immortal. However, it was possible to rope in a young man that had the potential to become a sword immortal. Yi Xian didn't know that the ninth floor master's words carried great weight in the Drunken Immortal Inn because he had won the bet yesterday. If he had lost the bet, then he would have died a horrible death. However, he had won the bet. The Drunken Immortal Inn had directly promoted him to the fifth floor master, and his authority was many times greater than before. It could be said that he had ascended to the heavens in a single bound. After a while, Yi Xian turned and left. Looking at Yi Xian's departing figure, the ninth floor master's smile became even more radiant, and his eyes were filled with admiration. Yi Xian was not only a monstrous talent, but his loyal character was also highly valued by the Drunken Immortal Inn. For this kind of person, if you helped him now, he would remember you for the rest of his life. With the help of the Jiang Country's imperial family and the Drunken Immortal Inn, the construction of Zhonglan Academy was very fast. In less than a few days, a large hall appeared on a mountain range. Jiyunshan. This was the name that Yi Xian had given it, using old Ji's name. On this day, the sky was just beginning to brighten. Yi Xian stood at the top of the mountain and looked down. Behind him were Mo Yunqi and the other 2. Yi Xian said softly, It's time to bring them home. They should pay the price for old Ji's death. A debt of blood must be paid with blood. After saying that, the 4 of them left Jiyunshan and went straight to Xueqi Academy. P.S. Today, I am going to Beijing's Lu Xun Academy of Literature for Advanced Studies. I am grateful to all the readers for their support. This time, I will not flirt with girls. I will only study hard and work hard. You must believe me, don't go around ruining my reputation. Chapter 110. Xueqi Academy. In the entire imperial capital, Xueqi Academy was in the most awkward position. Li Xuanzong's death had practically caused Xueqi Academy to be without a leader. As for how exactly Li Xuanzong died, they had no idea. After all, Jiang Yuetian and the 9th floor master wouldn't tell Xueqi Academy about this. Yi Xian's group of 4 headed straight for Xueqi Academy, and countless people watched them along the way. Who in the imperial capital didn't know Yi Xian's group of 4? Yi Xian's group of 4 could be said to be even more famous than Enlancio from all those years ago. Seeing that the 4 of them were heading towards Xueqi Academy, countless people followed them along the way. More and more people followed them. It didn't take long for Yi Xian's group of 4 and a large group of people to arrive at the foot of Tsang Mountain. Yi Xian raised his head to face Tsang Mountain. In the next moment, a sword suddenly soared into the sky and circled in the sky. At the same time, a voice suddenly resounded from Tsang Mountain. Xueqi Academy, does anyone want to fight? Does anyone want to fight? Countless people raised their heads to look at Tsang Mountain. No one replied. Boos rang out from the crowd. Suddenly, an old man appeared not too far away from Yi Xian's group of 4. It was the vice dean of Xueqi Academy, Mo Song, a divine combination realm expert. Mo Song stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Why go too far? You. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly charged forward and instantly arrived before Mo Song. In the next moment, he suddenly slashed the spirit elegant sword with both hands. A single strike to decide life and death. Not only did this strike contain powerful sword force, but it also contained sword intent. Mo Song's expression changed drastically when he saw Yi Xian's sudden attack. He stomped his right foot behind him, folded his hands together, and then pushed forward forcefully. Bang! A powerful force surged out from his palms. Bang! Under the gazes of countless people, Mo Song's entire body was directly sent flying. This time, he was sent flying more than 100 feet. Everyone was dumbfounded. Mo Song was a divine combination realm expert. He was sent flying just like that? In the distance, Mo Song glanced at his broken arms. Then, he lifted his head to look at Yi Xian in the distance and said in shock, Master Kendo, you. Suddenly a sword flashed. Chi! Mo Song's head instantly flew off. Blood gushed out like a fountain. Everyone in the surroundings was dumbstruck. Everyone was looking at Yi Xian. Kendo Grandmaster? Such a young sword Dao Grandmaster? Yi Xian opened his palm and the spirit elegant sword returned to his palm. Yi Xian held his sword and walked towards Tsang Shan. Mo Yunqi and the other 2 followed closely behind. Under the gazes of countless people, Yi Xian and the others entered the Shao Dao of the Tsang Mountains. Beside the Shao Dao, there was a corpse. It was a corpse that had been nailed to the ground. The original appearance of the corpse could no longer be seen clearly. His limbs had been nailed to the ground. It was a miserable sight. Tears flowed from Ji Anji's eyes as he gazed at the corpse. Mo Yunqi and Bai Zhe were about to remove the corpse when Yi Xian shook his head. I'm going to make the students of Tsanglan Academy kneel and send them back to Tsanglan Academy. As soon as he finished speaking, he walked swiftly up the mountain. Mo Yunqi, Bai Zhe, and Ji Anji followed closely behind him. As for the others at the foot of the mountain, they hesitated for a moment before they hurriedly followed. At this moment, they weren't afraid of Tsangmu Academy because the entire Jiang country and the Immortal Indulgence in were targeting Tsangmu Academy. At this moment, Tsangmu Academy could be said to be hated by everyone. It didn't take long for Yi Xian's group to arrive at the top of Tsang Mountain. There was a hall before Yi Xian's group of 4, and over 100 people were standing before the hall. All of them were students of Tsangmu Academy. The person in the lead was none other than the other vice dean of Tsangmu Academy, Ku Mu. Ku Mu had been heavily injured by Old Man Ji, but he hadn't died. Even though he hadn't died, he'd been heavily injured, and he still hadn't recovered. Ku Mu's expression was extremely unsightly when he saw Yi Xian. He's here again. He's here again. The last time Yi Xian had come to Tsangmu Academy, not only had he killed Fenju, but he'd also killed over a dozen of Tsangmu Academy students. And now, he'd come again. Yi Xian looked at Ku Mu and the others who stood nearby. Please send my Tsangmu Academy students to Tsangmu Academy. Remember, send them to Tsangmu Academy on their knees. Hearing this, the expressions of the Tsangmu Academy students instantly turned sinister. Kneel? That's an insult. Kumu said in a sinister voice. Yi Xian, since you want to fight to the death, then we'll fight. Yi Xian suddenly interrupted Kumu. Since you want to fight, then let's fight. As soon as he finished speaking, his entire body charged forward. Behind Yi Xian, the corners of Mo Yunqi's mouth curled into a sinister smile. Then let's fight. I fucking wanted to fuck all of you bastards to death since a long time ago. As soon as he finished speaking, his black shoes suddenly trembled slightly, and then his figure transformed into an afterimage that vanished on the spot. He was so swift that many in the surroundings couldn't even see him clearly. At the same time that Mo Yunqi charged forward, Bai Zai and Jianji had charged forward as well. This time, they hadn't come here to negotiate, they'd come here to fight. Songmu Academy was primarily responsible for Old Man Ji's death. So, how could they not fucking avenge him? Yi Xian's target was Kumu. Kumu was an expert at the peak of the divine combination realm, but he wasn't confident in facing Yi Xian at all. After all, Yi Xian wasn't just at the peak of the Skyfall realm, he'd even comprehended sword intent. A grandmaster in the martial Dao. A grandmaster in the sword Dao. Presently, Yi Xian's combat strength couldn't be compared to the past. Kumu spoke fiercely when he saw Yi Xian and the others charge over. Fight! Fight to the death! As soon as he finished speaking, he was the first to charge forward. Presently, Songmu Academy didn't have any other choice. So, they had no choice but to fight if they wanted to survive. Because he was very clearly aware that Yi Xian wouldn't let them go at all. So, surrendering would only bring humiliation upon themselves. At the moment that Kumu charged forward, a few more formidable auras appeared here. 3 divine combination realm experts. The 3 of them, along with Kumu, charged towards Yi Xian. Clearly, the 4 of them wanted to kill Yi Xian. As for the remaining students of Songmu, they charged at Bai Zai's group instead. 3 against almost 100. Mo Yunqi's group was undoubtedly crushed in terms of aura and numbers. However, there wasn't even a trace of fear in their eyes. Right at this moment, a group of black-clothed figures suddenly appeared here. There were over 40 of them, and every single one of them held black sickles in their hands. As soon as they appeared here, they immediately joined the battlefield, and their targets were the students of Songmu Academy. As soon as they joined the battlefield, countless students of Songmu Academy fell to the ground. Kumu roared furiously. The imperial household of the Jiang country. The immortal indulgence inn. How could he not discern that they'd been sent by the immortal indulgence inn and the Jiang country's imperial household? No one answered him. Kumu was utterly helpless as well. In the end, he could only besiege Yi Xian like a madman. 4 divine combination realm experts besieged Yi Xian, so Yi Xian was naturally no match for them. He retreated repeatedly as soon as the battle began. On the other hand, Kumu and the others seemed as if they'd gone mad as they chased after Yi Xian. All they wanted to do now was kill Yi Xian. At this moment, Mo Yunqi suddenly appeared behind Yi Xian. In the next moment, a golden flying dagger slashed towards a divine fusion realm expert not far away from Yi Xian. That divine fusion realm expert's expression changed drastically as he forcefully dodged to the side, dodging this fatal flying dagger. Almost at the same time, a figure charged towards a divine fusion realm expert not far away like a razor-sharp beast. It was Bai Zai. Before anyone could clearly see who it was, one of the divine combination realm experts was knocked back over 30 meters. On the other side, Jianji had also silently appeared in front of a divine combination realm expert. 4 against 4. As for the students of Xueqi Academy, they were completely suppressed by the black-clothed men. In fact, even if Yi Xian's group of 4 hadn't come to take revenge, the Jiang country's imperial household and the immortal indulgence in wouldn't have let Xueqi Academy off. If they didn't eliminate Xueqi Academy now, wouldn't they just be waiting for revenge in the future? Opposite Yi Xian, Kumu stared at Yi Xian. Good Yi Xian. I never thought that my Xueqi Academy would perish in your hands. You. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already above Kumu. A sword slashed down. Bang! Kumu was sent flying dozens of meters away. As soon as he came to a stop, the ground beneath his feet shattered. Not only that, but blood flowed from the corner of his mouth and instantly dyed the clothes on his chest red. Kumu was shocked to the extreme. He raised his head to look at Yi Xian. You! Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly shouted angrily, "Don't fucking talk nonsense with me. I just want to kill you." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged forward. Although he couldn't see, he could still sense it. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't see, his combat strength would have increased by at least 20% to 30%. Being unable to see would affect him to a certain extent. When he saw Yi Xian charge over again, a savage smile appeared on the corners of Ku Mu's mouth. Then come. As soon as he finished speaking, he charged towards Yi Xian as well. A powerful aura surged out from his body, and it was so strong that it surpassed the aura of an ordinary divine combination realm expert. He was detonating himself. Ku Mu was very clearly aware that it was utterly impossible for him to be a match for Yi Xian in his current state. So instead of allowing Yi Xian to kill him, it was better to take him down with him. However, Yi Xian didn't stop, and his sword suddenly struggled free from Ku Mu's grasp and slashed forward. The savage smile on the corners of Ku Mu's mouth gradually grew wider. Bang! A world-shaking explosion suddenly resounded, and then a powerful wave of energy surged out from the surroundings. Moreover, a figure was blasted flying incessantly amidst this powerful wave of energy. It was Yi Xian. He flew for almost 300 m before smashing against a mountain wall in the end. Everyone here stopped moving and gazed at Yi Xian. Yi Xian crawled up slowly from beneath the mountain wall, and then he wiped off the blood on the corner of his mouth and gazed at Mo Yunqi and the others. Kill! Kill them all! Kill! Kill them all! Chapter 111. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Mo Yunqi and the other two immediately charged out. Kill! He, Yi Xian, was never a soft-hearted person. Since the two academies had already reached a point where they could no longer fight to the death, why not kill each other? Karaki Academy had never been merciful to their Zhonglan Academy. Kill! Yi Xian himself also charged out. His speed was very fast, but his sword was even faster. Just as he charged out, his sword was already flying towards a divine combination realm expert from Karaki Academy. The divine combination realm expert who was fighting with Mo Yunqi had a huge change in expression. He suddenly turned around and the sword arrived. Boom! The divine combination realm expert was directly sent flying. At this moment, the exquisite spirit sword was about to fly out. However, a flying dagger was even faster. The moment that divine fusion realm expert was about to fly out, a flying dagger pierced through his throat. Chi! The divine combination realm expert's head instantly flew out, blood spurting out like a fountain. Mo Yunqi glanced at Yi Xian who was not far away and said indifferently, "Snatch ahead." Yi Xian wielded the sword in his right hand and swung it to the side. 100 feet away. Chi! Another divine combination realm expert's head instantly flew out. Instant kill. It was a direct instant kill. Seeing this scene, some of the Karaki Academy students were instantly shocked to the extreme. However, no one chose to surrender. If they surrendered now, they would only be humiliating themselves. Fight! Both sides no longer had a path of retreat. As for those divine combination realm experts, apart from Yi Xian, it would be difficult for Mo Yunqi and the other two to kill them in a one-on-one battle. But now there were 4 teams of 4. The 4 of them easily crushed them. After all the divine combination realm experts of Karaki Academy were killed, what followed was a massacre. A true massacre. In front of the education hall, the heads of Karaki Academy students continuously flew. The surrounding spectators were horrified. Some of them did not even dare to continue watching as they turned and fled down the mountain. It was too bloody. This day was the doomsday of Karaki Academy. Soon, only a dozen Karaki Academy students were left in the field. This was left behind by Yi Xian on purpose. The 10 of them huddled closely together. Their clothes had long been dyed red with blood. Yi Xian walked in front of the 10 people. "Do you want to live?" One of the Karaki Academy students grinned and said, "Live? Even if we die standing, we won't." Chi! A sword pierced through the head of the student who spoke, causing blood to spurt out. Seeing this scene, the remaining students couldn't help but take a few steps back. Yi Xian pointed at a Karaki Academy student. "Do you want to live?" The student gulped and struggled a little. At this moment, a sword flew towards him. Chi! That academy student's body was dismembered with a single slash. Blood and internal organs splattered all over the ground. Cruel? Blood. Yi Xian was very clear that if they were defeated, the outcome of the four of them would be even more miserable than this. Since they'd chosen to be ruthless, then they had to be ruthless when they had to be. Yi Xian pointed at another Xueqi Academy student. The latter's expression changed greatly and he hurriedly said, I want to live. At this moment, even his legs were trembling. Yi Xian faced the remaining people. No one spoke, but it wasn't long before the spirit-elegant sword beside Yi Xian trembled slightly. When they saw this scene, the students hurriedly said, We want to live. Life. In this world, not everyone was unafraid of death, especially when there was a chance to live. Yi Xian turned around and faced the foot of the mountain. There are 36 corpses of Zhonglan Academy students at the foot of the mountain. Send them home for me. Remember, you have to kneel. Hearing this, the expressions of everyone present instantly became unsightly. Send them home while kneeling. This was too humiliating. Yi Xian said indifferently, compared to the humiliation you've given them, what is this little bit of humiliation? If you're unwilling, that's fine. Leave your heads here as an offering to their souls in heaven. As soon as he finished speaking, the spirit-elegant sword suddenly floated above the heads of the group of Xueqi Academy students. Yi Xian raised 3 fingers. I'll count to 3. 3. The group of Xueqi Academy students clenched their fists tightly with extremely unsightly expressions. Cold sweat flowed down their foreheads. Obviously, they were struggling. Yi Xian bent 1 finger. 2. As soon as he finished speaking, the spirit-elegant sword suddenly descended. Hiss. One of the Xueqi Academy students was directly pierced from the top of his head to the bottom. When they saw this scene, the line of defense in the hearts of the Xueqi Academy students instantly collapsed. In next to no time, 6 Xueqi Academy students ran madly towards Cong Mountain's Xiao Dao. Just like that, under the gazes of countless people, the students carried the corpses of the Zhonglan Academy students towards Zhonglan Academy. Of course, all of them were kneeling. On Cong Mountain, Yi Xian and the others stood before the academy, and before them was a ground covered in corpses and blood. Country of Zhong's Xueqi Academy was completely annihilated. Yi Xian raised his head and faced the sky. Seniors, thank you for your help in annihilating Xueqi Academy. Now that Xueqi Academy has been annihilated, everything in Xueqi Academy shall be split equally between the 3 of us. What do you think? At this moment, the 9th floor master and Jiang Yuetian appeared in front of Yi Xian. The 9th floor master smiled. How about this? Brother Jiang and I will split 30%, and your Zhonglan Academy will split 40%. Young friend, don't refuse. If not for your master killing Li Xuanzong, we wouldn't have been able to annihilate Xueqi Academy. At the end of the day, we're the ones who benefited. Yi Xian thought for a moment and nodded. Then I won't stand on ceremony. The 9th floor master laughed. We're all on the same side. What's there to stand on ceremony for? Split the spoils. Xueqi Academy had accumulated its wealth for so many years, so it definitely had a lot of treasures. Mo Yunqi and the others shuddered with fear when they plundered Xueqi Academy's treasury. Among the treasures, there were actually 49 supreme-grade spirit artifacts, 6 bright-rank spirit artifacts, and one of them was actually a mid-grade bright-rank spirit artifact. Besides that, there were a total of 10 million spirit stones, cultivation techniques, martial techniques, and other miscellaneous items that were innumerable. This wasn't just getting rich, it was getting rich overnight. To the 3 parties, it was truly an overnight fortune. Jiang Yuetian was grinning from ear to ear. What the country of Jiang lacked the most now was wealth, and with this wealth, the country of Jiang's treasury would be sufficient for the next 10 years. The 9th floor master was quite excited as well. To him, these treasures entering the Drunken Immortal Inn was a political achievement. His goal wasn't always the country of Jiang or Azure Prefecture, but the divine central continent. He didn't have any hope in the past, but now he had a great chance. Yi Xian and the others were naturally excited as well. With so many things, rebuilding Zhonglan Academy would be much easier. Now that Zhonglan Academy was rebuilt, what they lacked the most were spirit stones, martial techniques, cultivation techniques, and spirit artifacts. One had to know that students needed resources to cultivate. With these resources, when they first recruited students, they would have something to learn, and they would be able to tide over the most difficult period of the early stages. This time, he was serious about rebuilding Songlan Academy. Soon, the three parties divided the treasures cleanly. On Yi Xian's side, there were 2 bright rank spirit artifacts, 16 supreme grade spirit artifacts, 3 earth grade martial techniques, 3 earth grade cultivation techniques. Apart from these, there were more than 3 million supreme grade spirit stones, more than 30 jade grade spirit stones, and various other items. Seeing these items, Mo Yunqi and Bai Zai's eyes widened. So many treasures. They had really struck it rich. However, these treasures were stored in the first floor of the prison pagoda by Yi Xian. The first floor of the prison pagoda was still spacious enough. After storing the items, Yi Xian turned to the 9th floor master and Jiang Yuetian. Seniors, we will take our leave first. The 9th floor master nodded. Young friend, the drunken immortal inn has accepted the items you gave me previously. The money will be sent soon, and I will send them to Songlan Academy. Yi Xian cupped his fists. Then I'll have to trouble you. With that, he turned and left. Mo Yunqi and the others followed. Watching Yi Xian and the others leave, the 9th floor master smiled and withdrew his gaze. We've earned quite a lot this time. Jiang Yuetian nodded. This time, the country of Zhang's imperial family had really earned a lot. It could be said that with these treasures, the country of Zhang's overall national strength would increase greatly. A win-win situation for all 3 parties. Jiang Yuetian and the 9th floor master looked at each other. Then both of them burst into laughter. Songlan Academy. When Yi Xian and the others returned to Miji Yunshan, the Karaki Academy students also sent the corpses of the Songlan Academy students to the peak of MTG Yunshan. In front of Yi Xian and the others were more than 36 corpses. Each corpse was extremely miserable. One could imagine how they were treated in the Karaki Academy. On the side were the group of Karaki Academy students. Without Yi Xian's permission, they naturally didn't dare to move. At this time Yi Xian suddenly said, "Let's go." The students immediately rushed down the mountain as if they had been granted amnesty. Yi Xian led Mo Yunqi and the others to the corpses. Looking at the corpses, Ji Anji's tears flowed again. These few days were the time she cried the most in her life. Yi Xian and the others bowed deeply to the corpses in front of them. Yi Xian said softly, "You can all rest in peace." Saying so, he turned to Bai Zai, "Bury them well, then erect a tombstone and carve their names on it. Let our Songlan Academy students remember them in the future. They died for the academy. Other than that, try to contact their relatives and try to compensate them as much as possible." Mo Yunqi nodded, "I will handle the matter of contacting their relatives." Yi Xian nodded slightly. "Other than that, there is one more thing. Although the Karaki Academy has been destroyed, it is still a branch. Hence, our crisis has not been resolved. I and all of you need to improve your strength. I won't force you. If you want to slack off, it's fine. If you die in the future, I will definitely give you a grand burial and make your funeral grand." Saying so, he turned and left. Mo Yunqi and the others. Yi Xian came to a bamboo forest in the back of the mountain. He sat cross-legged and placed his right hand where his eyes were. Sword Eye. His top priority now was to cultivate the Sword Eye. Chapter 112. Eye of the Sword. Yi Xian naturally had to cultivate the Eye of the Sword first. Because he did not have both eyes now, his battle power was still reduced. Yi Xian slowly analyzed the Eye of the Sword cultivation method that the mysterious woman had given him. The more he analyzed, the more shocked he became. Because this cultivation method was a little unbelievable and complicated. Eye of the Sword. Using the sword as the eye. To use the sword as the eye, one must first use the heart as the sword. Heart. This was the key point of the Eye of the Sword. Only by using the heart as the sword could one condense sword intent and use the sword as the eye. When that happened, it was equivalent to using the heart to see the world. The sword was just a medium. Although it was called the Eye of the Sword, it was more appropriate to call it the Eye of the Heart. Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. Beside him, the elegant spirit sword floated quietly. And around him, a surge of sword intent quietly condensed. Sword intent. Yi Xian did not know what kind of sword intent his sword intent was. Back then, the mysterious woman ran away before she finished speaking. But to him, any kind of sword intent was not important. What was important was that it could enhance his battle power. According to the cultivation method that the mysterious woman had given him, Yi Xian began to slowly circulate it. Soon, his body emitted a faint sword glow. This cultivation method only had 3 key points. Listen, feel, think. Yi Xian listened attentively. The sound of the wind. He heard the sound of the wind. It was very soft. Gradually, he heard the rustling of the leaves in the surrounding bamboo forest. At this moment, the sword intent around him suddenly spread out. The sword intent followed his thoughts to the bamboo leaves. When the sword intent appeared on the bamboo leaves, he could clearly feel all the details of the bamboo leaves. That feeling was as if he was seeing it with his own eyes. It was a very strange feeling. Yi Xian was a little excited. To him, this was a completely new discovery. Soon, Yi Xian's sword intent spread towards the ground below. Soon, he could feel the earth, the gravel, the smell of the soil, the water. He could feel more and more clearly. It was even clearer than seeing it with his own eyes. This feeling was really strange. Yi Xian was immersed in it. Soon, his sword intent spread out in all directions. However, it couldn't spread too far. When the sword intent reached a distance of 10 feet away from him, he seemed a little tired. He could use his sword insight to clearly sense everything within 30 m, but this was too troublesome. Because he wanted to clearly sense everything in his surroundings, he had to release his sword intent. In this way, the sword intent would be too scattered, and its might would be greatly reduced. What he needed to do was to cultivate the sword eye. At that time, he wouldn't have to go through so much trouble, and he would be able to achieve such an effect. With that in mind, Yi Xian withdrew his sword intent. Compressed sword will. Yi Xian began to crazily compress these sword intents. Before long, the sword intents inside and around his body were being compressed layer by layer. At this moment, his body felt like it was being cut by countless blades. The pain was unbearable. Yi Xian almost wailed out, but he forcefully endured it. If such a small ordeal could be called man, could he still be called a man? He, Yi Xian, would never scream, even if he was beaten to death. Ah! At this moment, Yi Xian's body trembled violently. Then, the entire bamboo forest resounded with his screams. Chi 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 chi. Around Yi Xian, the sword intents were like streaks of electricity, constantly gathering towards his eyes. Not only were there sword intents, but there were also streaks of sword radiance. When the sword radiance and sword intents gathered towards his eyes, the pain was truly unbearable. For a moment, he even wanted to give up. But now, he couldn't even give up even if he wanted to. Gradually, countless sword intents and sword radiance gathered in his eye sockets. These were all compressed sword intents and sword radiance. And his entire face actually had countless streaks of blood. Incomparably terrifying. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the pain he was enduring was. While Yi Xian was cultivating, Xueqi and the other two were also cultivating crazily. Although they had won the battle at Xueqi Academy, the 4 of them did not forget one thing. However, the 4 of them did not forget that Elder Ji had died in order to protect them. What was helplessness? What was despair? The moment they saw old Ji's death, they deeply experienced it. Whether it was Xueqi, Bai Zhe, or Jianji, none of them wanted to experience such helplessness and despair. Now, only the 4 of them were left in Songlan Academy, and Yi Xian was even suffering from the backlash, causing him to lose his sight. When the 3 of them thought of this, the pressure was even greater. Cultivating. Even Xueqi, who loved to slack off, was currently cultivating crazily. His entire body was covered with small metal balls, and every day before dawn, he would start running into the mountains. And when he returned, his entire body was already drenched. Not only that, his legs were also trembling. However, the next day before dawn, he would go out again. Bai Zhe was no longer cultivating under the waterfall. Instead, he continuously used his body to hit the mountain walls every day. He was not quite the same as ordinary people. The more his body was stimulated, the stronger his body would be, and the higher the possibility of the power of the demon clan in his body being stimulated. However, this process was extremely painful. Every time he hit the mountain wall, the flesh on his body would split open. Under the mountain wall, Bai Zai would hit the mountain wall again and again. And every time he hit it, he would cry out strangely. It was simply too painful. On the other side, at the Martyr's Palace. This was a newly built great hall of Zhonglan Academy. There were close to 100 spirit tablets inside the hall, and old Ji's spirit tablet was in the most conspicuous position. Ji Onji was kneeling quietly in front of all the spirit tablets. At this moment, a figure walked in. The newcomer was none other than Yi Xian. Yi Xian's entire body was trembling, and he was limping as he walked. Ji Onji didn't turn around. She just stared blankly at the spirit tablets. Yi Xian walked over to Ji Onji's side, sat down, and then faced the spirit tablets. Yi Xian said softly, "You've been kneeling here for an entire day." Ji Onji didn't say anything. Yi Xian turned to look at Ji Onji. "In the future, I want all of you to accompany me to the Divine Central Academy." Ji Onji looked at Yi Xian. "Are you serious?" Yi Xian nodded. "I'm serious." Ji Onji nodded, got up, and turned to leave. When she reached the door, she suddenly stopped. "Grandfather said that with you students, he has no regrets in this life." With that, she disappeared through the door. Inside the hall, Yi Xian sat on the ground. He just sat there, and after some time, he took out the wine gourd at his waist and took a sip. It was a little hot. However, the taste wasn't bad. Thus, he took a few more sips. Soon, his entire face was flushed red. In the past, he rarely drank. More accurately, he didn't drink at all, because in his opinion, drinking would only make things worse. But now, after 2 sips, he realized that it seemed to be pretty good. As he drank, Yi Xian suddenly knelt down in front of Elder Ji's spirit tablet. He held his head with both hands, tears pouring out like a broken dam. How could he forget Elder Ji's face before his death? He had never forgotten it. After some time, Yi Xian slowly stood up and turned to leave. When he reached the door, he stopped and said softly, "Elder Ji, don't worry. Azure Province's Xueqi Academy. Dark World. I won't let a single one of these people who came to harm us go. I'll also take old Mo and the others to the Divine Central Academy. Your master is our Grandmaster. We don't recognize the Azure Wave Academy, but we do recognize our Grandmaster." With that, he left the Martyr's Palace. Outside the palace, moonlight hung high in the night sky. As it poured down, the earth was bathed in silver light. Yi Xian walked away into the distance, walking in a crooked manner. Before long, Yi Xian arrived at the back of the mountain. On the side of the road, he encountered Mo Yunqi, who was running. Mo Yunqi stopped and sized up Yi Xian with a slight frown. "Bandit Yi, are you drunk?" Yi Xian shook his head. "Why would I be drunk? I'm not drunk." With that, he opened his palm, and the spirit grace sword appeared in his hand. He pointed it at Mo Yunqi. "Mo Yunqi, come, let's practice our swordplay." As soon as he finished speaking, he dashed out. Seeing that Yi Xian was serious, Mo Yunqi's expression immediately changed. He dodged backward and pulled several meters away from Yi Xian. "Bandit Yi, why are you acting like a drunkard?" "You." Mo Yunqi's voice stopped abruptly because the spirit grace sword in Yi Xian's hand was already slashing towards him. Mo Yunqi was shocked and continuously dodged backward. However, Yi Xian's sword was as fast as lightning as it chased after him. Mo Yunqi scolded as he ran. "Bandit Yi, why are you acting like a drunkard? Hurry up and stop, or I'll beat you up." Yi Xian did not stop at all and continued to chase after Mo Yunqi. Just like that, the two of them sprinted all the way. Soon, Mo Yunqi reached where Bai Zai was. Bai Zai was lying on the ground, panting heavily. When he saw Yi Xian chasing after Mo Yunqi, he was dumbfounded. "Mo Yunqi, how did you provoke him?" Mo Yunqi glared at Bai Zai. "Provoke him? This guy is drunk. He slashed me the moment he saw me." With that, he suddenly dodged sideways and a sword gleam flashed past. Chi! The sword landed steadily a few inches in front of Bai Zai. Bai Zai gulped and then crawled back a little. His body was strong, but Yi Xian's sword was very sharp. Most importantly, it was a mid-grade light-rank sword. At this moment, Yi Xian trembled as he walked towards Mo Yunqi, who was not far away. His face was flushed red and he held a wine gourd in his hand, taking a sip from time to time. Seeing this, Mo Yunqi's face was full of black lines. Bandit Yi you! At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly waved his right hand and the spirit elegant sword landed in his hand. He pointed the sword at Mo Yunqi and said angrily, "Who are you? Why did you trespass into my Zhonglan Academy?" With that, he directly rushed towards Mo Yunqi with the sword in hand. One sword to determine life and death. This sword directly decided life and death with a single sword. Seeing this sword, Mo Yunqi's expression changed and he turned to run. At the side, Bai Zai buried his head in the ground and did not move at all. He silently said, "Can't see me. Can't see me. P.S. I am currently studying in Beijing. I will try my best to keep up with updates. However, if there is a day where I don't update or stop updating, please show mercy. Because I have to go to class." Chapter 113. One sword to decide life and death. Mo Yunqi and Bai Zai were very familiar with this move. It was definitely Yi Xian's strongest killing move. Facing Yi Xian's move, Mo Yunqi had no desire to fight at all. He immediately ran away. Bai Zai also did not dare to take this move, so he chose to play dead. Right now, Yi Xian was obviously drunk, so it was better to temporarily avoid the brunt of the attack. However, at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly stopped. The exquisite sword also stopped on the spot. Soon, Yi Xian fell straight to the ground. Obviously, his drunkenness had dissipated a little. In the distance, Mo Yunqi stopped. He turned his head to look at Yi Xian lying on the ground, sighed softly, and walked back. Under the moonlight, the three of them lay in front of a huge rock. Yi Xian leaned against the rock. He looked up at the sky, thinking about something. Mo Yunqi and Bai Zai leaned on his left and right sides. The three of them did not speak for a long time. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Rebuilding Zhonglan Academy and avenging Old Man Ji will be very difficult and very dangerous." "You two. Stop." Mo Yunqi suddenly said, "Bandit Yi, you mean to say that you want us to leave?" Yi Xian was silent. He knew that revenge was a very difficult thing to do. He did not know how powerful the Green Province's Dark World or Zhongmu Academy were, but he knew that they were definitely not something they could fight against now. As for those two forces, they might not take this lying down. Apart from that, he still had to go to the Zhonglan General Academy of the Divine Central Continent. Naturally, he would not go there to reason with them. In this world, if one wanted to reason with them, they had to first use their fists. Only when their fists were stronger than others would others reason with you. The road ahead would be very difficult. At this moment, Mo Yunqi said in a low voice, "Bandit Yi, we know that the road ahead will be very difficult. It is precisely because of this that we cannot let you go alone." As he spoke, he took a step back, looked at the horizon, and softly said, "No matter what the future holds, we will shoulder it together. If we can withstand it, then we will walk down it together. If we can't, then we will die together. Although I don't want to die, I don't want to be a coward. Also, Old Man Ji didn't just die for you. He also died for me and Big Guy. His revenge, his wish, we have the responsibility to fulfill it for him." Bai Zai nodded. "Let's do it together." As he spoke, he clenched his right hand tightly. In an instant, his entire right arm swelled up, and the veins on it bulged. It was an extremely shocking sight. Bai Zai looked at Yi Xian and said seriously, "I can activate the bloodline in my body soon. I can fight very well." Mo Yunqi glanced at Bai Zai. "Big Guy, you have the bloodline of a demonic beast in your body. What kind of demonic beast are you?" "It can't be some random cat or dog, right?" Bang! Mo Yunqi suddenly flew out. Tens of feet away, Mo Yunqi crashed onto the ground, but he quickly climbed back up and pointed angrily at Bai Zai. One-on-one. Bai Zai dashed out. Soon, the two of them were in a mess. In front of the boulder, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. "That's good too. Let's do it together. If we can't, let's die together." As he spoke, he picked up the wine gourd at his waist and took a few gulps. Seeing this scene, Mo Yunqi and Bai Zai, who were not far away, suddenly stopped. Both of them glanced at Yi Xian. Yi Xian's face turned red again. Not only that, the sword at his waist trembled violently again. Run. Mo Yunqi turned and ran. His speed was very fast. Like a gust of wind, he instantly disappeared. Bai Zhe hesitated for a moment, then turned and ran as well. He couldn't beat this bandit Yi. Hurry and run. On the spot, Yi Xian started to fight. Then, he walked slowly into the distance, walking unsteadily. And the exquisite spirit sword beside him was also floating around, as though it was drunk. The next day, the 9th floor master of the Drunken Immortal came to the Zhonglan Academy. The current Zhonglan Academy had already built 16 halls. Regardless of the scale or other aspects, it was much better than before. The previous Zhonglan Academy was not even considered an academy. The current scale was a true academy. Zhonglan Hall. The current Zhonglan Hall was at least several times larger than before. Although the decorations inside were not very luxurious, it was very unique. Inside the hall, Yi Xian walked in front of the 9th floor master and cupped his fists. "Senior, please take a seat." The 9th floor master smiled. "There's no need to sit. Today, I'm here to deliver something to you." As he spoke, he took out a golden card and handed it to Yi Xian. Yi Xian took the golden card and looked at the 9th floor master. The 9th floor master smiled. "Little friend, guess how much is inside?" Yi Xian shook his head. The 9th floor master laughed. 360 million gold coins. Hearing this, Yi Xian's hand trembled slightly. 360 million gold coins. The 9th floor master smiled. "Little friend, do you think it's a lot?" Yi Xian nodded seriously. The 9th floor master shook his head. "You're wrong." Yi Xian faced the 9th floor master. "Why?" The 9th floor master smiled bitterly. "Do you know how much gold coins are needed for each advancement after reaching the Nether Passage realm? An astronomical figure. Cultivation was, in fact, burning money. If a Nether Passage expert wants to advance, he'll need to prepare at least 200 million gold coins to buy some cultivation resources. This money doesn't include spirit artifacts, martial skills, and cultivation methods. And once you reach the 10,000 laws realm, the amount of money needed is even more terrifying. I'm afraid even a small country wouldn't be able to afford it." As he said this, he shook his head. "If it wasn't for your master's help, I wouldn't have any hope of advancing in this life. Many people, it's not that they don't have the talent, it's not that they don't work hard enough, it's that they don't have the money." Yi Xian nodded. "I understand." The 9th floor master nodded. "Cultivation is burning money. For you, there are still many areas where you need money. Especially you swordsmen. You need all kinds of cultivation resources. When the time comes, you will feel very poor." Yi Xian smiled. "When the time comes, I might need to borrow some money from your esteemed building." The 9th floor master laughed. "No problem. As long as little friend asks, this old man will do his best." Yi Xian chuckled. At this moment, the 9th floor master suddenly said seriously, "Little friend, you might have to be careful." "Huh?" Yi Xian was somewhat puzzled. The 9th floor master said solemnly, "I received news from headquarters that I'm going there personally. Dark Realm and Xueqi Academy might not let this matter rest." Yi Xian said solemnly, "Even a sword immortal can't suppress them?" The 9th floor master shook his head. "I can. But I can't suppress the people in the Central Plains." When he spoke up to hear, he paused for a moment and said, "The pavilion master of our Immortal Indulgence Inn in Pine Prefecture sent me a message. He said that something big might be happening in the Dark Dimension and Xueqi Academy, so your master should be careful." Sword immortals were strong and rare, but they were not invincible. Yi Xian nodded with a solemn expression. "Thank you for the reminder, Senior. Also, I hope that Senior and your esteemed building can help investigate. Please inform me at any time if there's any news." The 9th floor master nodded. "Of course. Our Drunken Immortal Inn has always been paying attention to this matter. Also, little friend, it's best if you remind your master to be on guard, because those people might not come in an open and above-board manner. They will definitely do it from the shadows. Especially the Dark Realm. Those fellows are assassins, so it's absolutely impossible for them to come openly." Yi Xian nodded. "I understand." The 9th floor master nodded slightly. "Take care, little friend. Also, the higher-ups have instructed that if your master needs help, just say the word. Our drunken immortal inn is willing to dispatch experts above the myriad Dharma realm from the Central Plains. Roping them in. This time, it wasn't just roping in Yi Xian, it was roping in the sword immortal behind Yi Xian. The higher-ups of drunken immortal inn were obviously not stupid. A sword immortal and a youth that might become a sword immortal in the future were definitely roped in. Moreover, they had to pay a certain price. Yi Xian cupped his fists once more. Thank you for your kind intentions. However, I can't make the decision. I have to consult my master first. The ninth floor master smiled. Understood. He naturally knew that sword immortals generally didn't like owing favors. If Yi Xian's master didn't agree, then they wouldn't dare make the decision to send someone to help. A short moment later, the ninth floor master left. Yi Xian was the only one left in the Hall of Storms. Yi Xian turned around and went to the bamboo forest at the back of the mountain. He sat down cross-legged on the ground and then entered the first level of the prison pagoda. He looked up at the top of the pagoda and said in a deep voice, "Senior, someone is coming to beat you up. What are your thoughts on this matter?" He was definitely panicking. The other side clearly knew that he was a sword immortal, yet they still wanted to target him. This person was definitely someone at a higher level than Old Man Ji and the others. This kind of person, the four of them were definitely not a match for him. After waiting for a long time, there was no response. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "Senior, this time there might be many very, very powerful people coming to beat you up. Aren't you panicking?" At this moment, a white piece of paper suddenly floated out from the second floor. Yi Xian released his sword intent. Through his sword intent's perception, he felt what was drawn on the paper. The paper was filled with claw marks. Densely packed claw marks. Yi Xian's face darkened. What is the meaning of this? Pa! At this moment, Yi Xian flew out without any warning. Finally, he smashed heavily into the pagoda wall not far away. Yi Xian crawled up from the ground. There was an additional claw mark on his face. At this moment, another piece of paper floated out from the second floor. On it, there were still densely packed claw marks. Yi Xian's face twitched. Great God! I really don't understand this. Yi Xian flew out without any warning again. After a while, Yi Xian crawled up from the ground. Just as he got up, another piece of paper floated in front of him. There were still many claw marks. Yi Xian said angrily. Damn it, who can understand this? Can't you write a few words? Claw, who the hell can understand this thing of yours? You. Pa! Yi Xian flew out again. Great God, stop playing. Qingzhou. Great Cloud Realm. Xueqi Academy. In front of Howren Palace. Two old men stood quietly. One was wearing a white robe and the other was wearing a black robe. Both of them looked extremely similar. Both of them were looking up at the green sword above Howren Palace. Not far behind the two old men were Mu Qingxian and the others. After an unknown period of time, the white-robed old man said softly, "Although this person's sword is swift and fierce, it has no sword intent. Or rather, the sword intent has dispersed. For the sword intent to disperse, it means that this person might not be a sword immortal. He's a sword emperor. Not a sword immortal." Mu Qingxian and the others suddenly looked up at the white-robed old man. Beside the white-robed old man, the black-robed old man nodded. Our Xueqi Academy basically knows all the sword immortals of the divine central continent. We have never heard of this person. He shouldn't be a sword immortal. The white-robed old man nodded. Since he's not a sword immortal, we naturally have to kill him. The black-robed old man nodded. Kill him. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.